Yeah, somebody put a index.
Yeah, that was me,
That would, yeah.
because I'm the chair, so I like to know.
Oh, you are?
Good morning. Welcome to the regular commission meeting of the Manatee County Commission, February the 23rd, 2016. Hard to believe. We're almost to the end of February. I can't believe it. I'll start off with the invocation led by Pastor Steve Kinman of the Bible Baptist Church of Bradenton. Please stand.
All righty, let us pray. Gracious Father, we're so thankful that we can come to you today. Thankful today that I can call you Father. Thank you that you love each one of us as a Heavenly Father. And we're thankful that we can be part of this meeting today. We are grateful for the area in which we live. Manatee County is a wonderful area to live. I'm thankful for these servants that serve, these men and women that serve on this council today that help guide our county. And we do have many wonderful things to rejoice over and to plan through. And yet at the same time, there are struggles that we have. And we pray that you'd give the wisdom that it takes, Lord God, to help us make decisions that would please you. Thank you for all that you do for us. Thank you for what you're doing in our state. Bless those that meet today in Tallahassee that represent Florida. Bless those that meet in Washington, D.C., dear Father, that represent our country. We're thankful for each one of them and ask that you would protect them, give them grace. These folks today, Lord God, give them grace and help. Lord God, even in the process of trying to select a president and leaders of this great nation, we ask that you would give grace and help and wisdom and power in each decision that's made and each advance that we make to finish that process. Thank you again for the day, for the privilege that I have and my family to have lived here on the West Coast in Manatee County, Sarasota County for nearly 35 years. And it's a wonderful area to live. We call it paradise. And we know that we're blessed of you. Thank you for that. Thank you for the day, for life and health. And use us, I pray today. Give us your power upon our lives. And we pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Thank you, Pastor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, to start off the meeting this morning, anyone that would like to make public comment under citizens' comments, we do ask that you fill out a card for each individual item that you'd like to speak on, and you have 3 minutes, up to 10 minutes total. And please, at this time, make sure that your cell phones are on mute, and commissioners, that includes us as well. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. We do have 2 time-certain items, one at 11 and another one probably if there's any items pulled from the consent agenda at 11:30, and we will break for lunch at noon. So moving forward, Mr. County Administrator, are there any updates to the agenda?
Good morning, Commissioners, Chairman. Yes, we do have some updates. Changes to the consent agenda. Item number 21 in financial management, IFB 15292 BLS, water and wastewater treatment chemicals. The bid tabulation sheet was corrected and replaced to remove the non-responsive bidders. Item number 31 under property management, resolution R16018, exchange of real property between George H. Smock III, Richard A. Smock, and Manatee County for property at Bill Parish Road. And item number 32, resolution R16019, exchange of real property between Troy S. Parish and Manatee County for property at Bill Parish Road. Both of those items have been deferred to a later date. Number 35, under public safety, ratification of collective bargaining agreement between Manatee County and the International Association of EMTs, local R5747. Additional language outlining the fiscal components of the agreement was included in the background discussion section of that item. On additions to awards, presentations, and proclamations, item number 44 was added, Black History Month, February 2016, and there was a proclamation designating February 2016 as Black History Month in Manatee County, Florida. And then additions to the consent agenda, Public Works. Item number 45, FDOT construction agreement for signalization plans on State Road 70 at Lockwood Ridge Road, 45th Street East. And there is approval of a FDOT construction agreement for signalization plans on State Road 70 at Lockwood Ridge Road, 45th Street East, and authorization for staff, CM Lanazar, P.E., to execute as the construction coordinator. And lastly, we thought it was timely to add a legislative update. Nick will be available to do that later. And then there's one additional change that's not on your update. I received notification from the Health Department this morning that proclamation number 5 on Healthiest Weight Florida, they wanted to be here, but unexpectedly were not able to be, so they asked if we could defer that to the next meeting, so we would like to do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and move forward to presentations. Boy Scouts of America, Southwest Florida Council. Who is going to come forward to help us
Let's
with that?
guess. Are they all
Barry, is
coming
that
up?
you? Yes, sir. Please tell us your name.
I am Sawyer Pasco from Troop 10. And so I'm about to give you a report on what happened in 2015 for Boy Scouting. So Manatee District is one of 4 geological districts in the Southwest Florida Council, which encompasses about 7 counties. This includes boys, young men, children, and adults and women throughout all of Manatee County. We provide a resource and an asset to the county. Now, who we served in 2015, we served 1,414 youth. Were served with a 3.81 increase in membership growth. This represents about 4.68% of the total available youth in Manatee County. 859 of those boys, ages 6 to 10, were in Cub Scouts. 370 were from ages 11 to 17, were in the Boy Scouts. And then 158 young men and women, ages 14 to 20, were in the Venturing and Sea Scouts program. This includes the 140 affiliated with the ROTC units in high schools. 27 youth in the Learning for Life Explorers affiliated with the Manatee County Sheriff and Bradenton Public Police Departments. And then we also have 462 adult scouters. So what we do. The Boy Scouts of America provides young people to make ethical and moral choices throughout their lifetimes by instilling them with the values of the Scout Oath and Law. Specifically, we endeavor to develop the Manatee citizens who are physically, mentally, and morally fit. We have a high degree of self-reliance as evidenced in such qualities as initiative, courage, and resourcefulness. We have personal values based on religious concepts, have the desire and skills to help others, understand the pride of American heritage, and understand our nation's role in the world. We also have a keen respect for basic rights of all people and are prepared to participate and give leadership in Manatee County. We do this in cooperation with families, schools, and religious institutions. We build adventure. Scouts do things. They build, play, make friends, and work together. They set goals and accomplish them. They go places physically, mentally, and spiritually. These life-changing experiences and the confidence they provide become the building blocks of childhood. Building blocks that eventually form a foundation that a scout can stand on and embrace opportunity and overcome obstacles. For the parents watching in awe, it is not a question of where a scout will go, but where won't he go. We have over 10,000 youth and adults who utilize Camp Flying Eagle and over 15,000 utilizing Price Sanders Scouting Reservation in Punta Gorda. Besides utilizing our local camps, our units have used 4 national high adventure camps, plus traveled to a variety of camps and places of interest all over southeastern United States. By building interest, the Boy Scouts of America uses merit badges to encourage the youth to study activities of interest. The purpose of the merit badges to provide a program to allow scouts to examine subjects to determine if they would like to further pursue them in career or vocation. There are currently 136 merit badges, orientated in categories such as life skills, career opportunities, professional as well as manual, hobbies, and general interest. The program expertise, the program requires scouts to study the subject, complete certain requirements, and then contact an adult, one who is an expertise in the area, and contact them that they haven't met before, arranging a meeting, and then demonstrating the skills similar to a job interview. And each merit badge has a pamphlet published by the Boy Scouts of America associated with the activity. The pamphlet contains information on completing the requirements for the badge. Once these requirements are completed, the scout meets with the counselor to demonstrate that he's completed the requirements. The counselor then signs off on these requirements. So how we've given back to the community, there are a total number of 40 Boy Scouting units, a total number of 24 Eagle Scout projects with 23 different beneficiaries, a total of 5,362 hours of service to the Manatee County at a value of $123,701, based on the national volunteer hour value of $23.07. The total number of local Eagle Scout projects provided a service included above number of 3,481 hours. Scouting for food yielded 4,425 pounds of food distributed through the Food Bank of Manatee for families in need. We have also partnered with LECOM to provide free annual health screenings for scouting youth and adults. We also provided a blue ribbon winning booth at the Manatee County Fair to highlight scouting. We have charter organizations partner in Manatee County that sponsors these scout units include 24 religious organizations, 10 schools, the Village of Cortez, the Manatee County Sheriff's Office, the Bradenton Police Department, and the Bradenton Kiwanis Club. We have also partnered with the Bradenton Kiwanis Club for Better Manatee Day to benefit Camp Flying Eagle. We build leaders. In 2015, 24 scouts earned the rank of Eagle Scout. In addition to the 21 life skills merit badges required to earn the Eagle Scout rank, a scout must complete an extensive service project that he must plan, organize, and lead and manage before his 18th birthday. In 2015, Eagle Scout projects provided more than $80,323, again based on the national hour volunteer value, in service to communities across Manatee County and surrounding communities. And then for our adventures in scouting, for more than a century, the Boy Scouts of America, and more specifically here in Manatee County, has helped build the future leaders of this country, state, and community by combining educational activities and lifelong values with fun and adventure. Scouting provides opportunities for families and communities to join together to create the next generation of conscientious, responsible, and provide citizens, ensuring our youth are prepared for life. Are there any questions?
Good job.
You know, I don't have a question really, but I do have a comment. I'm curious. What you just did is very hard to do, to stand in front of that microphone and talk to all of us and the citizens. So I'm just curious, is there any way that might help you receive a badge or anything?
Let's hope.
Moving forward?
Remember that, guys.
No, this does not help me get a badge. This is completely voluntary.
Well, I just wanted to tell you that since I've been in office for 4 years. And before that, I'd kind of lost track of the Scouts. And I don't know why, other than, now I'm into grandchildren and they're all up north. But I've had the honor to go to 3 different events regarding Eagle Scouts. So I just wanted to say thank you to you, because I know that you're a mentor to probably many, and to all of you sitting there for everything that you guys do to help our youth. It's really, the Boy Scouts is just a tremendous organization, and it's really touched my heart in watching some of these young men that have gone up to be Eagle Scouts now. So I just wanted to say thank you. Any other commissioners? I do have Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, before you get away,
We're not going to let you go that easy.
you gave us a nice long report, and we really appreciate that because I know how important scouting is. I served on the Girl Scout board for about 6 years of Gulf Coast, Florida, so I know how important scouting is to our youth today. And you basically made an advertisement for scouting, standing there in front of the television cameras, and that's really important so that people can understand what scouting can do for a young person's life. And I'm also very happy that you gave us a report that includes a list of all the Eagle Scout projects, everything that's going on that's being done for Manatee County. Again, something that people may not be aware of, the amount of work and, you talked about the value that is being created by these projects. So I want to thank you, the rest of the Scouts, and all of the mentors, all of the adults that serve as leaders. You guys are also what make it happen as volunteers, so I want to thank you all for coming forward today and sharing with us.
Commissioner Bustle.
Well, with your permission, I'd like to introduce Mr. Jim Thielen, who is one of the district administrators, and behind this organization is a bunch of devoted people. Could you introduce your folks, please, Jim?
Thank you, Commissioner Bustle. We have Rod Urban, who's our district chairman. We have Lou Ashman, who's part of our district committee. We have Mac Aldrich, who's our vice president of program. Judy Aldrich, his wife, who works on our training committee and many other hats. And we have Mark Wasowsko, who's our district professional. And again, my name is Jim Thielen.
Thank you.
I do have one more, the county attorney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to point out on the last of your various attachments is the list of all of the Eagle Scouts and their project accomplishments in the last year. I just wanted to note that one of the listed Eagle Scouts, Chandler Shepard, has the largest number of hours as among all the Eagle Scouts on the list working at Fogartyville Cemetery. Whoa. And it so happens that Chandler is the son of Juliet Shepard, who is one of our legal assistants in my office.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
All right, nice shout.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
And speaking with us this morning.
Thank you for the
Good
opportunity
job.
to speak.
Good job.
Moving forward, Florida Master Naturalist Program Upland System Module Student Graduation Recognition. That is a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. Good morning, Commissioner. Sherry Corrier, Director of Neighborhood Services. And I'm just going to take a minute to mention again that you're here for the certificate of completion for the Florida Master Naturalist Program Upland System Module. And I'm going to be introducing Lisa Hickey, and Lisa's in charge of this program. She's the Urban Horticulturist Extension Agent with Manatee County and the University of Florida IFAS Extension. And Lisa's been doing this for a number of years. She started teaching the program in 2008, but the program's been around with the university since 1991. So I want to turn it over to Lisa.
Hi. Good morning, Madam Chair and Board. Thank you for this opportunity. I know my face gets familiar after a while, but I love to promote our volunteer organizations, and the Florida Master Naturalist is one of those, where residents of Florida, and of course they take this program in Manatee County, so there are some Manatee County citizens and there are other county citizens that come to our county to take it. But they take this program because they want to learn more about Florida ecology, the interaction of animals and plants and why they're in a specific habitat, and then what is the impact of humans. And then after they learn this information, they actually go back to their communities and they start getting involved in their communities or just sharing the information they learned so that other people start learning more about Florida and why it's unique to a lot of the different other states in the United States. So the group that's in front of us actually just finished the uplands, which is what I always say is it's the high dry area. It's sandy, not very much likes to grow there, but there's a lot of unique animals and plants that are in that habitat. It was 40 hours of contact time. They actually did probably more hours of that outside the class because they had to do projects to help in the community. And those projects, I'm going to talk real brief on them, but I want to point out 3 individuals because they have now completed 120 contact hours because they have done all 3 modules, uplands, coastal, and wetlands. So if Margaret could stand forward, Margaret Williams, Dave Barr, and Chris Garber. They finished the most, and they will be getting a huge plaque that says, you are now a Florida Master Naturalist.
Good, congratulations.
The rest of the group is going to get a certificate of completion saying they've just now finished the uplands module. So let me just talk about some of the community involvement that we had with this group. We have a local chapter called Singing River, and it's master naturalists who have graduated at one time and said, I want to do a little bit more for the community. So what we've done with the community is we've partnered with the South Florida Museum, and they are renovating their natural resource pathways. And 6 of the group in our class decided they would help with some of the interpretive topics for those pathways. And when you see the renovation done, which is it's supposed to be done somewhere in 2018, as you go through those pathways, you'll hear tips about the pathway, whether it's something about fire or what planned communities do, or, help me guys, I'm missing water, what water does in our community. That's them that came up with those topics and those interesting points. Then we also partnered with Manatee County Golf Courses for the first time. The Manatee County Golf Courses want to create wildlife corridors through the Audubon Society. And 2 of the individuals actually partnered to go out there and identify the native plants and the wildlife that currently use the courses. Their job then is to actually come up with a plan to bring in more plants that will encourage more wildlife to use these golf courses. And it's a connection with the golf courses and other communities to try to make more living space for wildlife and for native plants. So we partnered in those 2 things. We also had other projects, like one of the students did a puzzle to help us with new students coming into this program. And it was a fun way of learning some of the facts. And then another individual did a brochure on dry prairies, which we don't realize really does have a lot of water under the ground, but we call it dry because that's what we see above the ground, and it's in the uplands. So let me recognize these individuals. We did have 13 graduate. Before us are those that could get off of work or be able to get here before they headed back up north, because we do get northerners come and take the program because they know nothing about Florida, and they're going to be living here for 6 months, so it's good for them to actually understand the state that they're snowbirding back and forth with. Okay, so the first individual is Dave Barr. Jeff Dolinar, who also works out at Lake Manatee State Park, so it's a good partnership with the state park system.
Okay.
Cynthia Evans. Chris Garber. George Quitner, who is in another county. He does tours. I'm sorry, I keep mixing you up with somebody else. He's in Manatee County. I will be quiet at this point. Manatee County, go, go. He does help with our park systems here and a lot of volunteer with natural resources. Aru White, who comes from another county. And Margaret Williams. The last person is Barney Solomon.
Yay, Barney.
Barney doesn't want me to talk about him, but I'm going to anyway because we only get chances once in a lifetime to be up here. Barney actually works for a planning and development department for Manatee County, and this program opened his eyes. That will help him in his job when he starts looking at the process of development. And now with the knowledge he has with this program, he can actually benefit the development process and some of the movement we have when we're trying to plan communities, because we do have to live in equilibrium with our environment. So that's a good asset that we have that we're excited about too. All right, thank you everybody for this opportunity.
Thank you. Good job. Congratulations, everyone.
Congratulations.
Do.
Okay, next we have the Library Foundation donation, and Commissioners, we're going to need a motion on that, but we'll let them present first.
Thank you, Commissioners. While I'm speaking, I'm going to call up the Library Foundation Board, Ava Edie, our Library Services Manager, and I'm going to turn it over to them. But before we do that, as you know, what a great group of individuals. Not all of them could be here today, so we want to make sure and recognize the entire library board if they're able to watch the replay of this and say how much we appreciate them. They're all very busy as well as some of the other folks, and they're traveling. But what a wonderful group to work on behalf of supporting supplemental needs of the Manatee County Library System. And again, a fantastic year event. And I'm going to call up Ava so she can go through some of the specifics with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Ava.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners and Deputy County Administrator Slant and also County Attorney Palmer and citizens. I'm very, very proud today to be here and speak about the Library Foundation. They have, for 2 years in a row, put out an impressive event. We are truly the envy of libraries across the state with the events that they have put out. The very first year, they invited Stephen King, and he very graciously came and gratis did an event for us that was a very conversational and interesting opportunity to get to know him better, and that helped us as that fundraising money went to our new integrated library system, which we just put into place at the end of 2015. So a very, very helpful event that was matched by county dollars, and in doing so created a public-private partnership that they are continuing with this year. January 19th, they invited Stephen King back, and he brought his good friend John Grisham. And I don't think there was anything else like it in the state, to be quite honest. I continue to go to meetings and people give me the evil eye. And I tell them we're really, really fortunate to have these folks behind me that make those things happen. Their mission is to provide supplemental funding for the library and the library system in Manatee County. The board managed to put together a great slate of donors and an event that raised, I believe, $122,000 this year. And was it 215, okay, I've got my target off. $215,000. Their plan is to help us with a 2-year literacy program called I Am a Lifelong Learner, where we would hire a literacy coordinator whose primary function will be go out to those underserved communities and to offer support where needed, to put together programs to reach families and really help to build family literacy skills, to provide resources to the children themselves to make them more able to go to school and have the basic tools they need, and then resources to lend to them to make them more successful, and also to engage them as library learners so they can become lifelong learners and engage them throughout their lifetime. The Library Foundation found these donors. They have managed to do so successfully. They're attempting to build lifetime commitments with some of these folks. Some of them, it was a one-time opportunity. And we have folks from some of those groups here, such as Chris Romine from Northern Trust. And I am going to turn it over to Sherry Ayler, who is the current president of the Library Foundation, and she can introduce one of those amazing volunteers that the young man before me spoke about at $23.07 an hour. I can't even tell you the amount of hours these folks have put into events such as this. We are extraordinarily grateful and very, very thrilled to have such a supportive team working with us. Sherry? Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners, Deputy City Administrator Slant, City Attorney Palmer, and guests. We are excited to be here today as members of the Library Foundation. My name is Sherry Ayler. I was recently elected president. Our mission is to financially support our county library system. Today, we present a check in support of a new program for our libraries. Before Susan presents that check, I would like to acknowledge and recognize our event chairs, Jane Plitt and Susan Wilcox, our treasurer, Paul Lynch, and our past event chair, Doris Pope. Their hard work and organization is evidence of the success of our Bookends Conversation event in January. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have the fun part. I have the check.
Susan.
I'm Susan Wilcox, and as Sherry mentioned, I was the event chair. And so on behalf of the Manatee County Library Foundation, I have to present this check for $161,000.
I'm going to, hold on. I can't miss that.
Somebody's handing a check, somebody should pick it up.
Got elected to come get it. Oops. We were sitting there looking at each other like, oh my gosh. Wow.
As I said, it's for $161,000. This represents the first year of the 2-year commitment to the New Literacy Project. This, as Ava mentioned and as Sherry mentioned, it is possible from the funding of our Bookends event that was attended by over 800 people. These people came from around the state and even from other parts of the country. They flew in specifically to attend this. So we were very proud to be able to show off Manatee County to them. We also want to thank the generosity of the community and of our sponsors. Northern Trust was our presenting sponsor, so thank you, Chris. And, of course, authors Stephen King and John Grisham. I also want to give credit to our board, who was phenomenal in contributing to the success of this, and I specifically want to mention Jane Plitt, who is our immediate past foundation president. She's the one that managed to get Mr. King to come for the first time and also then said to him, now what can you do for us? And he said, well, I can bring my good friend John Grisham. So it's through her dedication, initiative, and perseverance that we were able to do this for 2 years. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go out this way.
Would you like a motion, Madam Chair? Yes. I move acceptance of the $161,000 donation from the Library Foundation for the countywide Manatee County Lifelong Learner Administration Program.
Second. You're the chair.
You're the
chair.
You can't make a
Go ahead.
I'm not the chair, John is.
John is.
Oh,
I thought she was still running.
I know it. That's why I said, would you like it, Madam Chair?
And we have a second, of
Okay.
course, Commissioner Bussell. No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No negatives. Motion passed.
There's
It's been a while since I've done it.
John, there's a second motion, too.
Commissioner Chapman, the clerk want to see.
Excuse me, for the record, that also includes adoption of Budget Amendment B16039.
Yes, I was going to make a
Absolutely.
separate motion for that. I didn't know if we need a separate motion for adoption of Resolution B16039. I'll make that
Second.
motion.
Go ahead. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. No opposition, motion passed. Thank you very much.
Can we do this now?
Sure. Smile.
Straighten up the check, somebody said.
And lower it a little bit so we can see your faces.
There we
you
go. Thank you. Nothing like having good news on a Tuesday.
Really?
All right.
And I'll turn it back over to the chair.
I never gave it to you.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
Smart move.
Thank you to the Library Foundation. What an awesome event, and the donation is just unbelievable. So it's wonderful. Betsy.
Yeah, and I had a chance to attend both events, and the second event was at Neal Auditorium because they had such a bigger crowd, and that initially they thought they might have trouble filling up the auditorium, but no problem, and that was how they were able to raise so much more money, again, for the second time. But it was really fun to see the two authors on stage discussing back and forth, just sharing stories, and I think the people that attended, I know Larry was there too, really enjoyed it. So.
How often do you get to see John Grisham and Stephen King at the same time?
Yeah, and I got to thank him for many summer beach reads.
Yes.
And you know what he said to me? He said, "Yep, that's why I write him." I said, "Well, good. I didn't want to offend you, but that's."
Love John
I love reading him on the beach. So.
I've never read any.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move forward. Proclamations. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner DiSabatino and a second by Commissioner Benak. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is unanimously approved. And the first one is National Engineers Week. Vice Chair John Chappie.
Come on down, guys.
All these cameras on.
I don't know.
Didn't you take a picture of the check?
There goes half the
Didn't you
room.
take a picture of the check?
What?
I was getting nervous,
Take a
all these
picture of the
suits. I
check,
thought
the news
we had
meeting.
more attorneys in here than usual. So. But you guys are what helped build this country and build Manatee County. So I can't tell you how much of an honor it is to read this proclamation for you.
Come on down, guys. Come on down.
These guys are much smarter than attorneys,
Calling down.
Commissioner.
Yeah, come on down.
Whereas
Girl.
February 21st through the 27th of 2016 is designated as National Engineers Week, which is celebrated throughout the local engineering community. And whereas public events celebrate National Engineers Week will include various middle and high school outreach programs and presentations, the annual Toothpick Bridge Building Contest, the Engineering Week Social LaBarge Cruise, and the Engineering Week Luncheon at Dutch Heritage on February 18th. And whereas engineers help design, construct, and maintain the infrastructure and facilities that contribute to the high quality of life for all residents of Florida, its growth depends on engineers executing innovative, creative, high-quality solutions to technical problems. And whereas engineers are bound by their ethical covenants to hold permanent and safety, health, and welfare of the public, promote social and economic interests of the engineering profession, and stimulate and develop professional concepts among all engineers through education and in practice. And whereas engineers in Manatee County contribute direct to the quality of life in Manatee County by working with others to improve the safety and quality of our roads, our houses, our workplaces, our water, our environment, and the products we use. And whereas members of the American Society of Civil Engineers, Florida Engineering Society, American Water Works Association, Florida Water Environmental Association, American Public Works Association, and the Florida Institute of Consulting Engineers are making strides to interact with the public sector of our local schools to prepare future engineers to maintain our economic leadership and quality of life. It is fitting that we recognize and honor the continuing contributions of America's engineers by observing Engineers Week with the theme, Engineers Make a Difference. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commission of Manatee County, Florida, February 21st through the 27th, 2016, shall be known, designated, and set aside as Engineers Week in Manatee County, Florida, adopted by a quorum and voted this 23rd day of February 2016, and signed by our chairman, Vanessa Ball. Guys, thank you so much for everything you do for our country.
Good morning.
Morning.
Ron Shulov, Public Works Director. I am not an engineer.
I was going to say, what do you?
But I am blessed to have this team in Public Works who makes such a difference in this county. Not only in the county CIP, the hundreds of millions of dollars that are watched and scrutinized as we construct projects to the county, but also the community, our construction community who are building and enhancing our paradise. These folks work with them hand in hand. So we take this opportunity to steal this moment to show off our engineering team for the county. It's really, it's a national proclamation, but we're going to be a little selfish here. So, and nobody ever gets to introduce Sia. Sia is not only he's not the oldest engineer, but but Sia is the lead engineer. He is the county, when somebody says, who's your county engineer, once upon a time that was a requirement in Florida. It's no longer. But it is for us, and our lead and county engineer is Sia Melanazar. So I'm not stealing any of the thunder. This is Sia's show, and he's going to introduce his team.
Good.
Thank you.
Welcome, Sia.
Good morning. Thank you. Sia Milan is an engineer with Public Works. We have over here Mrs. Sanka from American Society of Civil Engineers who will receive the proclamation. But before that, it has become a tradition to do this, to introduce you to your engineering team. Before I do so, I would like to convey my sincere thanks to Director Schulhofer and County Administrator for their continuous leadership and support, and this Board of County Commissioner for assembling, recruiting, and retaining this team. The team is responsible for a variety of engineering projects, capital improvement project countywide, from utility, water, and sewer, to bridge, to roadway, thoroughfares, and traffic. At this time, I would like to let your team introduce themselves.
Good morning. My name is Chris Mowbray. I graduated from Old Dominion University, and I'm roadway.
Good morning, Nalidis Alicea, Polytechnic University of Puerto Rico, highway engineer.
Good girl.
Hi, good morning. I'm Dr. Sunny Fu. I received my PhD degree from Louisiana State University, and I'm a highway engineer. Thanks.
Girl.
Good morning. My name is Gregory Berkman. Graduated from Kyiv Road Buildings University in Ukraine. A highway engineer. Thank you.
Interesting.
Good morning. I'm Thomas Cady. Graduated from the University of Florida, utility engineering.
All right, Gator.
Good morning. My name is Jim Stockwell, University of British Columbia, utility engineering.
Good morning. My name is Cheryl King. I graduated from the University of Missouri at Rolla with a BS in civil engineering, and I work in utility engineering.
Good morning. Scott May, Tri-State University with utility engineering.
Good morning. Anthony Benitez. I graduated from University of South Florida, and I work in project management on CIP projects.
Thank you.
Shay Shown, graduated from University of South Florida, utility engineering. Must apologize for my attire. I must have missed the memo, so.
Dark suit.
We didn't even notice it, truthfully, until you said it.
No.
Good morning. My name is John Perry. I graduated from the University of Rhode Island in 1988. I'm with Stormwater.
Got it. Yeah.
Good morning, Board. I'm Taha Ataya. I graduated from Thomas Edison State University, and I'm a transportation engineer with project management.
Good morning. My name is William Lorenzo, University of Puerto Rico, project management.
Good.
Morning, my name is Ricardo Colon. I am from the University of Puerto Rico, and I also work for project management.
Good morning. My name is Steve Laney. I graduated from West Virginia University, and my expertise is bridge engineering and structure engineering.
Morning, Sajid Kamia, Public Works Deputy Director of Traffic Management. I wasn't smart enough to get just one degree, so I had to get a couple of them. I got my Master of Business Administration from USF and then my Civil Engineering degree from Florida State. My emphasis is Civil Engineering from Florida State, but I've dabbled in a little bit of other engineering stuff as well. I'm going to speak a little bit for our transportation planning. We had one engineer, Nelson Galliano, who couldn't make it this morning, so we have an engineer in our transportation planning group as well. Thank you.
Morning, Commissioners. Vishal Kakkad. Just like my boss, I had to take 2 degrees. Got my bachelor's from University of Mumbai in India. Got my master's from University of Florida. Again, transportation and traffic engineering. And you can tell he's from FSU, I'm from UF. But we still make a very good team. One of the engineers from my team couldn't be here due to family sickness reasons, Mukunda Gopalakrishna. He also had his bachelor's from Bangalore University in India and master's from University of Nebraska here. Thank you.
Cool.
I'm the last engineer in the traffic design engineering team. My name is Paul Villaluz, PE-PTOE. I got my bachelor's at UNLV, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, in '97, and I had my master's at UNLV as well in 2006. And I wanted to make sure I had 2 degrees as well.
Before Paul steps away, I just want to say that he is actually leaving us. He's moving back home to be with family, and so we will severely miss him. But he's been a great addition, and so just wanted to make sure that you all knew that. And we'll be before he can go, he needs to find a replacement. So,
Paul, is that Vegas?
Yes,
Yeah, Vegas.
headed back to Vegas.
Have
so.
fun. Come back.
All your support.
We'll miss you.
Retire.
Good morning. I'm Ken Cohn, graduated from the University of Florida, and I'm in the Stormwater Division.
And last but not least, good morning. Thomas Gerstenberger, graduated 2001 University of South Florida and Stormwater Engineering. Thank you.
Thank you, Boris. Since Mr. Schulhofer alluded to, I'm the oldest engineer. I started over here with 3 engineers on board at Manatee County. This is your 30-member team, your engineers.
Yeah.
Right. At this time, I would like to recognize Mrs. Sanka from American Society of Civil Engineers, who will receive the proclamation.
Thank you, Sai. Thank you, Commissioners. It's an honor to be here representing the American Society of Civil Engineers and also the other engineering professions within our community. This is something we are very proud of as engineers. As you know, we plan, we design, we construct, and we maintain your infrastructure, and it's dear to us. And in addition, American Society of Civil Engineers within the area, we help the students get interest in STEM courses. We have a number of projects lined up for this celebration. We do have our toothpick bridge contest, which is going to be held this Saturday. And we do have our Lebaj Sunset Cruise this Saturday, and I will entreat you to come check it out. And also my fellow engineers here, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before you guys go, we have a few comments that we'd like to make. I got to tell you, I never realized that we had engineers from really basically around the world. It's very impressive, and we just thank you for all that you do. I mean, it's so important. Infrastructure, the roads, it's so important, and we just thank you for being with us and to get us through it and stand by us and help in every way that you do. Commissioner DiSabatino, you're next.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to thank you. I know we all want to thank you, and all the departments do a wonderful job for the county. Your department is in charge of so many different aspects, and you're interrelated with all the other departments. And there's not a day that goes by if any of us don't just send an email or make a call regarding a pothole or a street light or a sidewalk or some type of issue, and it's taken care of immediately. And so I really want to thank you all. You're really professional. Looks like we have the UN of engineers here in the county. It's an international team, and very impressive, and just doing a great job, and you're very inspirational, and thank you so much for all you do to the county.
We thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Whitmore.
And, I'm just totally blown away about where everybody has gone to school and how they ended up in Manatee County. And, we do our jobs, and we don't see all of you. We see maybe 4 or 5 of you that come before the board. And it's so refreshing. I think I don't know if you've added since last year, but it seems like there's a more, like we're saying, it's more international from all over the world, your training. And we thank you for coming to Manatee County, but this is the only time we really get to say thank you to all of you guys, because we don't get to see you. So thank you for all the hard work you do for the citizens of Manatee County.
Absolutely. Mr. County Attorney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In my years of construction law practice, I've had the pleasure of interacting with a wide variety of engineers, civil, structural, electrical, mechanical, the list goes on. And they truly are silent heroes. This nation's infrastructure rests on the backs of these guys.
Absolutely.
They are in quiet rooms designing this nation's infrastructure day in and day out, and they truly are heroes. And they may be dressed like lawyers today, but indeed they are much smarter than lawyers. I will readily acknowledge that. And so
Remember, you said that. We did.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Well, I mean it. Thanks,
Right.
guys, for everything you do. Thanks.
I'm taking a note.
You can use that later, right?
He's taking notes, yeah.
I thank you all for coming in, and I just have one last thing that I have to say. I cannot let this moment go without saying it. Go Monarchs. Thank you. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Go.
Severe Weather Awareness Week. Commissioner Benak. Never seen
So,
one
we
from
gonna
Old
have
Dominion.
meteorologists
That was
come
just
up?
rare.
Oh, public safety.
I
was
know,
going-
but Old
come up
Dominion's
for
my
that.
hometown. Never see that.
The women rock.
I know.
Severe weather.
There's 3, right?
Radio does not
There's
go on.
3.
Let's hope this is not a precursor of things to come this week. We know we have some threats of severe weather possibly coming through this week, but it is something we should all be very much aware of. So I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Whereas each year Floridians face the threat of severe weather events such as lightning, thunderstorms, floods, flash floods, rip currents, tornadoes, and hurricanes, all potentially dangerous to life, health, and property. And whereas severe weather events in 2015 caused loss of life, injuries, and property damage in the state of Florida, and whereas the National Weather Service, the Florida Division of Emergency Management, and the Manatee County Division of Emergency Management wish to stress the importance of remaining prepared for severe weather by disseminating safety and preparedness information, and whereas departments and agencies of the local, state, and federal government, along with volunteer and professional associations, elected leaders, and news media, are committed to informing Manatee County residents and visitors about safety and severe weather preparedness so that they may protect themselves, their families, and their neighbors. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Manatee County, Florida, that February 22nd through the 26th, 2016, shall be known, designated, and set aside as Severe Weather Awareness Week in Manatee County, Florida, and encourages all residents and visitors to understand and initiate proper safety measures when severe weather and hazardous conditions occur. Adopted with a quorum present and voting this 23rd day of February 2016, signed by our chair, Vanessa Baugh of the County Commission.
Thank you very much. I would like to introduce the team behind the scenes, if you will. We have Keith Ball, Sharon Tarman, Candace Kelly, Sherilyn Clark, and I believe you all know our boss.
We don't know who he is.
Bob Smith. So this week is Severe Weather Week, and we are focused on a number of outreach things, mostly associated with the social media. But Monday was lightning awareness. We're focusing on Tuesday, today being marine hazards such as rip currents.
Yeah.
Wednesday, of course, we're possibility of some severe weather, but we are focusing on tornadoes and thunderstorms. Thursday, hurricanes and flooding, and Friday, extreme temperatures for things such as wildfires. And within this week, there are two things that are going to transpire to make you aware of. One is on Wednesday, what we call IPAWS, Integrated Public Alert and Warning System. This is a federal system where they actually ping the cell towers to all of our communication devices, and they're going to be running a test of that system. Florida is one of a number of states that was chosen to run the test, so that will be happening Wednesday at approximately 2:20 p.m. Challenge there, of course, is it's only cell phones that were built and or purchased prior to or since 2013. Older phones do not have this capability. And then, of course, Friday at 10 o'clock, the National Weather Service is going to be running a tornado drill, and this is where we're going to be able to test the weather radios. And so that will also be occurring. And I thank you very much.
Don, I think some of us have a couple of things. Would you go over again, I want to make sure I heard you correctly, on the cell phones?
Yes.
On Wednesday? And you say any cell phone that was purchased after 2013?
Correct.
Before, actually, 2013 will not
No.
work?
Since 2013 to date, the phones have been activated. They have the programming in them. Some of the older phones, particularly the flip phones, prior to 2013, do not have that technology capability. But the other nice thing is when the federal government initiated this program, all the carriers have signed on board, so when they send out these alert messages, there is no charge to anyone that owns these phones. The carriers are absorbing these costs, so it's a no-charge item for them, for us, I should say.
The reason I bring that up is because, you know, we just had the tornado situation out in Duet, which was just horrible. And, you know, part of the comment that I heard from citizens was, you know, we need to be notified. So, you know, it's interesting. I didn't know about the cell phone situation. So thank you for sharing that. And the other thing I want to say is that I don't believe most of the citizens in Manatee County know what a great job you guys do and how you stay on top of everything, and you've got a wonderful plan of action. You've got it covered. So it's nice to know that we're, you know, covered like that, and I'm amazed at what all you guys do.
Well, on behalf of the team behind us, as well as a number of you have seen when we activate the Emergency Operations Center, all those partners that come to the table, that is truly the full team that really makes it happen.
It's really amazing to see, and it's amazing to see how everything is coordinated together. So thank you very much. Any other commissioners? Any comments?
Great job.
Good job, Don.
Thank you.
You protect us.
Thank you.
All right, good luck. Keep it safe, okay? Yes. Keep it safe. I know you will.
Thank you so much.
Now a very, very important proclamation, Black History Month. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be accepting this proclamation for those. Proclamation, Board of County Commissioners, Manatee County, Florida. Whereas Black History Months date back to 1926 and observe Afro-American achievements, and whereas Black history celebrate the achievements and contribution of Afro-Americans in the United States. And whereas Black History Month intent is not only to increase the knowledge of Black history in Black communities, but also to spread the issues to American society as a whole. And whereas all members of the nation are affected by Black history, it is a part of American history which should be celebrated for everyone. And whereas Black History Month has become a symbolic time period in which appreciation and celebration of African Americans begins every year and continues all year, and whereas various celebrations will be held in Manatee County to honor of Black History Month, now therefore be proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Manatee County, Florida, that February 2015 shall be known, designated, and set aside as Black History Month. The Manatee County, Florida, and the board further calls upon the people of Manatee County to recognize this observance with appreciation and ceremony and activities. Adopted with a quorum present and voting this 23rd day of February 2016, and signed by Vanessa Barr, Chairman of the Board of County Commissioners. I accept this proclamation for those who stood before me, for those such as Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., for those of Harriet Tubman, for those of Mary McLeod Bethune, who founded Bethune-Cookman University, for those who have stood before me, Dr. C.T. Vivian, at 92 years old, which the movie Selma was based on, Dr. Bernard Lafayette, the first Black Harvard minister that I had ever met in my life, for those women who fought the battle, white and Black, who gave their lives for me to stand up here and to serve the public, I accept this proclamation humbly to you, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner Smith. All right, at this point, we'll go ahead with the agenda. We do have an 11 o'clock time certain. Are there any items to be pulled from the consent agenda, Commissioners? Commissioner DiSabatino.
Item number 20, I want to just discuss that because we got a letter late that there was a challenge to the process.
So at 11:30?
Commissioners,
Want that to be pulled or just?
That's not it.
Commissioners, a point of clarification. That protest letter that you received late yesterday has nothing to do with any items on today's agenda.
What I thought.
Or that?
There was some initial confusion in that regard, but the purchasing official, Melissa Wendell, has confirmed that the protest letter that arrived yesterday has nothing to do with any item on today's agenda.
That's what I
Okay.
thought.
Okay, so I withdraw that, and I just wanted to, well, it deserves a mention, item number 35, that we have the ratification of the collective bargaining, and I see our men and women of uniform here, the EMTs, EMS. So it's great that the county attorney's office and the union were able to come to an agreement and make a seamless delivery of care to the citizens of Manatee County. And I just wanted to read, they have a preamble here, I was just reading, and part of it, there's two paragraphs. The second paragraph reads, the parties recognize that the best interest of the community will be served by assuring the public at all times of orderly and uninterrupted operations and functions of the county government, and by providing in the most efficient manner public service to the citizens of Manatee County. So I just wanted to give a shout out and thank you.
Goes without saying. That's all, Commissioner DiSabatino? Any other commissioners, anything to be pulled? All right, I'm not seeing anything, so we'll just continue to move forward then. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Oh, wait a minute.
Public
let me
comment.
finish. Hold up.
Public comment.
I'm going to that in just a second.
Oh, you can always do it.
Wow. Items, approved consent agenda, that is items 9 through 37 and 45, and that's with 31 and 32 being deferred. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Chappie, second by Commissioner DiSabatino. At this point, I'm going to open public comment. I do not have any cards. So is there anyone from the public that would like to come forward and speak on items 9 through 37 and number 45? Not seeing anyone from the public. I will close public comment. Go back to the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The chair votes aye. It is unanimously approved. Okay. Well, we have some time to wait before we can go to the time certain. We've got about an hour.
Be some people that might have been confused about what happened.
What?
This guy holding his hands, he didn't know that maybe that was an opportunity.
I'm sorry. Did someone raise their hand?
No,
Who?
they were waving goodbye.
Oh, is that what? I didn't see them. Betsy saw it.
I just want to make sure that people know that that was their opportunity to speak on the contract, if they wanted to speak about the contract or anything.
On
so I
consent
just-
agenda.
On the consent agenda. Okay.
They left.
Okay, all right. I knew I didn't see anybody. I know. Gosh, I wish we could go to time certain, but we can't. What?
Regular agenda, we
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
All right, item number 40, advertise public hearings. 17th Avenue West, Bradenton, regulating engine compression release braking, ordinance 16-09. That's all, yes, sir. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Vishal Kakkad, Public Works Traffic Design Division Manager. The item that you have in front of you is for 17th Avenue West. It is not a truck restriction. It is to post signs for no compression, engine compression release braking. This is a residential neighborhood. It's a residential street, and it came to our attention from the citizens in the area that there are large number of trucks going specifically between 34th Street West and 43rd Street West, which is 34th is where my finger is right now over here, and then 43rd is over here. We did the study, we did the traffic counts, and we also did the classification count, as we call, how many trucks are going in the area. And based on the percentage of trucks that were part of the total volume, it met the criteria that we have. And therefore, staff recommended that it is appropriate to install this and or restricting engine compression release braking signs. This was advertised on, or it came through in front of you for January 23rd. At that meeting to advertise it, and so this is the public hearing portion of that.
All right. Commissioners, anything? All right, well, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion
Well,
to
let's-
approve.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my fault. So we have a motion by Commissioner Chappie, second by Commissioner DeSabatino. Before I carry it forward, is there anyone from the public that wants to come forward and speak on this item? Not seeing anyone, we'll go ahead and close it. Commissioner Chappie.
Yeah, just before we vote on this, I just want to thank staff and to let the public know this is just another perfect example of a request coming in from residents about an issue that they felt needed to be corrected. Staff worked with the community. They went through their survey, went through all the process to have things, or well, they didn't have a survey, but they went through the process. The staff surveyed the area, found that it was warranted, and that's why we're here voting today, and it's going to help improve the quality of life for that particular neighborhood. So, thank you.
Commissioner Bennett.
If I could just ask a question. So this looks like a primarily residential neighborhood. Why do we have a lot of trucks going through it to begin with?
Sounds like Whitfield.
Get past
On a
Manatee.
local
No,
road.
I think they are just trying to avoid
Yeah, Cortez and
some
Manatee.
signals on main roads.
Right.
I can't tell why.
Okay.
There's been traffic go through there. It has the city on one side,
And I failed to mention, and I'm sorry, east of 34th is city limits. So
Okay.
the limits that we are considering as our limits.
and 17th is a busy.
Yeah, I do remember having a gentleman come forward, maybe sending letters talking about the problems with trucks in this area. So hopefully this will be a step in the right direction.
It is, and as you know, that from here on, it helps our enforcement people, our cops, to actually enforce it. We'll put up the signs, and eventually the next step is we do the engineering piece, and hopefully enforcement will make it easier on them as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You know, I just want to say, too, that it is a step in the right direction because I know there are other areas in the county that are expressing some of the same concerns here. So I'm glad to see this happening. I think it's a good thing, and I dare say we'll see more of it, I hope. All right, Commissioners, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is unanimously approved. Thank you. Moving forward, Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Bennett. Ms. Brewer.
Don't look like Mr. Bennett to me.
Mr. Bennett's going to
There.
allow me to present. Good morning, Commissioners. The item before you is a good news item. This is the HAVA grant, and we've been fortunate enough to receive it every year. This year, the opportunity is to receive a grant for $35,368. We have to match 15% of that, which is roughly $5,346. Mr. Bennett already has that within his budget. The funds will be used specifically for the FY16 federal election cycle. It allows mailing and publishing ballots, voter guidelines, and some training materials to the benefit of our taxpayers. And I'll have any questions if you, I'll answer any.
Commissioners, any questions?
I'll just
All
make a
right,
com- just
Commissioner
make a
Bussell.
comment.
I just wanted to ask a frivolous question of the supervisor of elections. Do you have any other money hidden over there? Good.
Ooh, a thumbs up. Interesting.
Oh, he does.
Commissioner DeSabatino.
Well, and it's great to have any money coming in helps out because now you have another election. In addition to our local primary and general, now you have this election coming up, and you have to go through the same cycle with early voting, absentee, the whole 9 yards.
Correct.
So-
And, we had asked originally, if you'll remember, we had money we were going to turn back to the county. We asked y'all to kind of set on it. We're still going through that. It appears now that we will probably be able to send a lot of that money back from last year, but we haven't quite wrapped up that final end of the budget right now. But we're close. And again, I think every year since we've been there, we've asked for less money and reduced our budget, and we will continue to do that.
It's great. And you're opening up more early voting places?
We will now have 5 early voting sites. We'll still have the same number of precincts. All of the new equipment is on board. We saved a substantial amount of money when we kept negotiating. The staff did a wonderful job. It appears that we ended up bringing that equipment in about $1 million savings. So we're working on those final numbers right now.
Could you just let the citizens know where the 5 places are and early voting starts 5th?
I don't have the date of the early voting starting with me right now. It's a week ahead of time, whatever that date is, was next week, I believe it is. Week after next we'll start. We'll have that in the paper, and then you'll have West Manatee Fire Department has joined us,
good.
which is the first time we've had one out on the west side. Very, very difficult to find early voting sites, as you all know. It's extremely difficult to find a building that can give up their usage for a week, and it's got to have 3,000 or 4,000 square feet. Plus, we have to have the security of it, so we pretty much have to take over the building and because of the voting equipment and the rest of it in there. And so there's just not that much space around. We have the Rocky Bluff Library. The libraries have been good. We were very disappointed with the turnout in the last gubernatorial election with the Manatee Civic Center. So we moved that over, working with the city of Palmetto. We were able to secure the library up there, and so we'll have that library. Lakewood Ranch has been fantastic. Came real close to beating the supervisor of elections office last year, or 2 years ago, in the turnout on that, so we're excited about that. So, and again, we're continuing to push the vote by mail. Both parties are working hard to get their people to register for vote by mail because they realize that approximately 85% of all of the people who request to vote by mail will send it in versus about a 50% turnout, 60% turnout on the other people who plan on showing up at the polls. Early voting is still not the answer to everything. We don't really get the turnout out there we'd like to see, but again, we're hoping that eventually people will get used to those sites and we will continue to have the highest turnout in the state. Last year in the gubernatorial election, we were actually tied by one other county for the highest turnout in the state of Florida, and I believe that that's because of the vote by mail that people took advantage of.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator, the highest turnout that you mentioned, I had another question, but since you mentioned that, was that in the primary or the general election?
That was in the general election.
The general election, okay. Since the districts have been...
So happened that the primary turnout, I don't happen to have that number with me off the top of my head, but it was also one of the highest that we had expected in the state.
Okay, I was told that because I was telling even District 2, I believe, the primary, I was told that. But my question, with the districts being redrawn, when do we receive our new cards for by mail, or will we receive
We
new
weren't going
cards?
to send you one.
You won't be sending any new one?
Actually, she's working on those. Right now, the presidential preference primary doesn't affect the cards because you don't need it for the cards.
Okay.
So as soon as we get that out of the way, that's our next major move, that we will be getting those cards out as soon as possible.
Never thought of that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Benek.
Yeah, again, not directly on topic of this grant, but since we have you here at the podium, the presidential preference primary, we had our mail ballots came to us, I don't know, week before, and there's somebody that is no longer on that ballot. What happens to all
Actually, you
those
have
folks who
several
may
people.
have voted for that person that decided to withdraw?
Just so happens I did, and my vote didn't count either, okay? But basically what happens, just because of the timing, you have to remember, we had to send the overseas ballots out 45 days ago, actually 60 days ago now. So in order to get all the printing done and the rest of the time, the state of Florida sends down to us and says, here's who will appear on your ballot. Even if they pull out of the race, okay, they're still on the ballot because they've already been printed, they've already been mailed out. For example, Governor Bush didn't pull out until this week. Well, I can't get all the printing done and get the mailing out and get it out in time. So you would hope that people would be familiar with who still are in the race and who aren't. And yes, we have received about 12,000, 10 or 12,000 of the ballots already back, and you have to assume that several of those people's votes never going to matter for anything. But, you know, it's just one of those things that there's nothing I can do about it.
No do-overs.
No, they don't. They don't count, I assume.
They
No longer a candidate.
Actually, the vote will count, they just won't count for anything. You know,
Will they be on the
it,
regular election? Because you said you can't change them now, right?
Well, it's interesting, and people don't understand this. You know, Governor Bush suspended his campaign. He did not drop out.
Right.
Oh.
Okay, and there's a real fine, thin line there. He can come back into the game. Okay, for example, if in fact they go to, I don't know, say a brokered convention or whatever, he could still be back in the game if all of a sudden things materialize. So it's kind of an interesting thing that the way that politically that it was done, but he did not drop out of the race. He suspended his campaign.
But in Florida, it's winner take all.
For delegates.
Yeah.
It's
This year.
It's an interesting situation. Florida used to be proportional. I think that the Republican Party of Florida, of which I'm a proud member, but not the stupid side. The stupid side decided, geez, Governor Bush is going to win that election in Florida. Let's make sure he gets all of the delegates. And so they voted to change the rules, and they did change the rules. And I've noticed over time, anytime either party decides to change the rules, they forget that tomorrow's another day and the rules can change. And so it is a winner-take-all state. More than likely, Governor Bush is not going to be the winner-take-all. And so I think the Republican Party is wishing they had not quite done it that way.
But they can change it for the following year, or?
It would take them to beyond the presidential race to change the rules back again. So possibly they learned a lesson in this. I think we're seeing the same thing on Supreme Court nominations at the federal level.
Right, and then there was one year that they jumped in too early and we got half of our delegates.
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Remember that?
years ago.
Yeah.
There's 99 delegates in the state, is that correct?
Correct.
Is there?
Winner take all.
All right, well.
Well, it's winner-take-all for the first couple votes.
They
Okay?
had 3 votes and then.
3 votes, and then they're free to change, unless somebody who's got that decides to kick them loose. They are not committed to stay there forever. Now, the Democrat Party has got a different set of rules, the Republican Party's got their set of rules, and when you really get down to it, the delegate situation really doesn't mean anything to anybody, because when you go to their both conventions, that's really where the nominee is going to be done.
And what's the date on that, Mike?
The conventions?
Yeah.
I don't have those dates on top of my head. I'd be guessing you're wrong.
Commissioner Smith.
Yes, Madam Chair. Senator, what is the election date coming up now, so the public can be aware of it?
It is the March 15th.
March 15th.
March 15th is our presidential preference primary.
Okay.
And I would like to make sure that everybody understands, unless you are a registered Republican or a registered Democrat, you cannot vote. The last date to change the party affiliation was the 16th of this month. It has to be done 29 days in advance. For those people who did switch, they can switch back anytime that they want, okay? But to vote in the presidential preference primary, it is set up by the two major parties, and they are the ones who pretty much set the rules for it. We all pay for it, but they set the rules. And unless you are a registered Democrat or a registered Republican, you cannot vote in that race.
Okay, and the election will be the same day for the Democrats and the Republicans, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I want to get that straight.
Yes, we do it that way in Florida. As you all know, every state seems to do it different. Like Nevada did the
It's confusing some people. It's confusing some
Extremely confusing for people as they're trying to find some commonality across the country for these things. But it's like right now, I believe that for President of the United States, there are a little over 1,000 people who are registered to run as President of the United States.
Wow.
Wow.
But they're not on our ballots.
No. That's really the purpose of the primaries, is to narrow down the field. What happens is Ms. DeSabatino, who loves her husband dearly, wanted to give him something special for his birthday, so she decided to pay for the filing fee so he could run for President of the United States.
The secret's out, huh?
What can I say?
Bob for president.
Out of curiosity, what is the filing fee?
For presidency?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't plan on doing it.
It's got to be high.
I don't know.
Per
I really
state.
don't think it's all that high. I think it's under 10,000.
But don't you have to file in each state if you want to run in each state?
If they, in order to get on the ballot in each state, they would have to either pay the filing fee or come up with the percentage each state requires as far as petitions. And that's why you don't see, like when Rosie O'Donnell, or whatever her name was, when she decided to do it just for kicks and grins that day.
That's funny.
Commissioner Smith, one more time.
Yeah, Senator, we was up to Tallahassee, and your name kept coming up. Every time we talk to someone. And we see you have a bill moving to empower all the supervisor elections across the state, moving through the state and in the
I
legislature.
have been known to push that particular general item.
I know.
But, it's interesting because I refuse to chair the committee for that, but obviously because of connections up there, I'll help the supervisors or Manatee County. Sarasota County, I will help anybody that I can that represents Manatee County for any issue up there. And if I'm going up, I normally make a call around and see if there's something that I can help the county with.
We call it the Mike Bennett bill.
Actually, one of the legislators did.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I kind of see a fear there. I don't know.
They still have that fear in their eyes.
It's good for them.
Interesting.
I know.
Keep them guessing.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move this forward. Anyone from the public, I'll go ahead and open public comment. If anyone would like to come forward and speak on this subject, speak now. All right, not seeing anyone, I'll close public comment.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a, no, I don't know.
The one before.
We have a motion by Commissioner DeSabatino, a second by Commissioner Whitmore. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Passes
Have a good day.
unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Moving right along, transportation project priorities. Clark, is it you or Sia?
Good morning. It'll be me for this side.
Or maybe Sajay.
Good morning. For the record, Clark Davis, Transportation Planning Division Manager, and I'm here to talk to you about our year 2016 project priorities. This agenda item is a little more complex than we've brought to you the last couple of years. This is owing in part to some progress that's been made or lack thereof on a couple of projects and the update of the the MPO's long-range transportation plan to its 2040 version. I'll start with the part that we do every year at this time, and that is our project priorities for what you can think of as the programs at the Metropolitan Planning Organization level. This is their congestion management system program, the transportation alternatives. In the past, it's been called special enhancement or transportation enhancement projects.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Yes, if I can get the mic a little better here. So this first part is for our programs, has to do with congestion management. Our transportation enhancement projects are now called transportation alternatives projects, and the multimodal emphasis corridor for the county. This is presented to you as Table 1 in your packet. I'll put that up on the document camera just for reference. It's pretty small type, so I don't know if you'll be able to read it here. Most of this page consists of projects that we prioritized last year. There were a handful of projects that did get funded. One of our multimodal emphasis corridor projects was for transit amenities and buses in the US 41 corridor. The transit amenity portion of it, which is basically enhancement of our transit stops, was funded. We were not ready to make the commitment to the operating costs associated with adding service in the corridor, so the bus component of it was not funded, but we do consider this to have been fulfillment of our request for that particular project. Also, not through the MPO process, but with county and working with developers, we were able to fund the northbound right turn lane at Lockwood Ridge Road and State Road 70. So those are no longer on this list, but I believe the rest of it's more or less intact. And then at the top, we've got a couple of new project priorities. One is for our advanced traffic management system. This is for countywide improvements to that system. One of the things we have for that system are cameras at intersections that we use for monitoring. These aren't the ones we use to detect the presence of vehicles, but they're the ones we use that can pan and tilt and zoom, and we can look upstream. It helps us manage traffic during an incident. You know, when traffic starts to build up on an approach, it informs the operators and lets them make adjustments for it. We don't have countywide coverage in that regard, so we're trying to enhance that coverage, and we're also trying to add what we call vehicle detection. These are mid-block devices that help us do counts and speed studies and classification count, so the total number of vehicles and then the vehicles by type, and we use those for that. And so this first project is an expansion to the system for that purpose. And then the second one is an addition to the multimodal emphasis corridor. In a way, this is a replacement for a project we had last year. We had a request for pedestrian crossings on US 41 in the vicinity of USF. This is the supersized version of that, if you will, which is why I presented it to you as a new project, because the scope is so much greater. And we worked a little bit with FDOT, but we're actually waiting on them to do some of their preliminary studies for the corridor. They are looking at, and these are potential, not definite yet, but things like lane elimination. With lane elimination, they move the curb line, so that would mean new bicycle facilities, either new bike lanes on the road or adjacent trails. They're looking at landscaping and then also roundabout control at intersections. This runs from south of the county line to the Pearl area. Now, whether or not all of that gets the same level of enhancement will be one of the outcomes of the study. Staff's request is for the portion that's within Manatee County. That covers the overview of that table, and I have made or structured this agenda item as several different motions, and so I can do this all, and then you can do motions at the end, or we can take them one at a time.
We have a few questions, I think, for you.
All right.
Moving forward, Commissioner Chappie.
Yeah, I just a couple quick comments for those of you that watched the TDC meeting yesterday. Elliot brought up the fact that they had been participating in a meeting with regards to the South County, the trail, kind of rebooting that to make it more user-friendly, the complete streets concept. And I think it's very important, and it's great how the different, across departments, working together to improve the quality of life, the safety issues, and actually getting into marketing what our community is all about and the type of community we are, and we want to grow into even more so. The second thing, it's interesting how things go back to the way it used to be. You know, I've been here 42 years. I remember when US 41 had a median in there, and it was 2 lanes on each side, and then they eliminated it, and it was a shame. You know, then they made like a runway strip down through 41, the corridor, lost all of its character. So, yeah, those were the only 2 things I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
Yes, Madam Chair. You know, Clark, they told me you had all the answers, so I wanted to ask you about the Canal Road. Where is that, you know, in the future planning? And, you know, when you look at the traffic north of the river, when you're going east and west toward the city of Palmetto and you know, Parish, the Canal Road is mostly about maybe, and I'm just guessing, I don't know if we ever done a study the lack of usage because of the danger of it. But if that road was ever had the proper infrastructure, it would alleviate a lot of traffic because you can cut from one side of the county to the other side by going down the Canal Road. On rainy days and it was a lot of traffic days, they don't go down that road because of the canals. Do you know where we at dealing with the Canal Road? I'm understanding it was put in some type of plan, but I don't know how far it's back. But I mean, if some work was done on that road, I mean, you would alleviate a lot of different traffic that automatically go through Parish the same way every day. The residents that's going toward Port Manatee can cut across instead of going around and going downtown, for example, or Palmetto. They can cut through Canal Road and cut across and have to go through the city of Palmetto. Could you kind of update me on that if you have the information, or if you don't, that's fine too. I can talk to you later. But I had told Sergeant that I'll bring this issue up this morning.
Well, at this point, it's more in the planning stages. So Canal Road is a county thoroughfare. It's recognized as important for mobility long-term for the county, and it is, along with several other roads in North County, an older road that was built at a time to serve what was primarily a rural area, and so a two-lane road with canals on either side maybe wasn't such a bad road to have. But now we're starting to recognize the need to upgrade a lot of our infrastructure to start providing more separation from of vehicles and bicyclists and pedestrians from the canal. So is a recognized need. It shows up on our needs list. It just hasn't found its way to funding status yet. So it's one of those important high priority roads that's waiting in the wings. That there are several good examples, most of them in North County, or portions of Moccasin Wallow and Buckeye and Ellington Gillette as well.
Yeah, and I was going to mention Ellington Gillette. Mayor Buss and our district is divided by there, and I know it's some work getting ready to take place in that area. And the intersection there, I have a concern about that too. But really, that Canal Road, I'm telling you, it would alleviate so much traffic to keep from going straight down. Now, I wanted to spend money downtown Palmetto, don't misunderstand me. But it would give an option where you can go and cut across in there to deliver some of the traffic that may be coming across that way. I mean, every day, Ellen Gillette Road right there on that corner, there's no turn lane, which you already know. The traffic is backed up. It don't have to be a bad day because the cars that want to go straight, they're waiting for that light to change, and the cars that want to turn right onto Ellen Gillette Road, they're sitting there in traffic. So I've had quite a few complaints about that. But if you can keep me abreast of the Canal Road, I'll be asking that over and over again because I think the future of us moving traffic it deals with that Canal Road. And we got a lot of ditching right away there, too. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, I think it's, this, obviously road planning is super important to our constituents, everybody in the county. Everybody's recognizing, especially this time of year, all the traffic that we have and some of the shortfalls we have. But I think it's worth pointing out that these are limited buckets of funds with limitations on what we can spend the money on. You might want to just, again, run down those. And I know, things like Ellington Gillette, I think that's an existing project, right, that's actually underway, if I remember correctly, the turn lane there at Ellington Gillette. But if you could just maybe go down and say that these projects that we're looking at, these funding sources are limited. For example, the transportation alternatives has got limitations on it, and the multimodal emphasis corridor. It's not the whole picture. It's just these specific buckets, right?
For these particular projects, that's the case. We'll go through some of the major project priorities in a moment, but for these that I've characterized as programs, there are limitations. The congestion management system is federal surface transportation program funds. They can be used on federal aid eligible highways, most of the main roads in the county, but this is a construct of the MPO. So it follows not only some federal rules, but some ones set by our Metropolitan Planning Organization, and it's primarily intended to address congestion issues at signalized intersections. Transportation alternatives is a set aside at the federal level that's further defined at the state level, but it's limited primarily to multimodal type enhancements. So sidewalks end up being eligible, bike paths, enhancements to transit stops, not buses or our service, but infrastructure that might support it. So the things that complement the highway network. Regional trails, likewise, it's one of those set-asides of the Transportation Alternatives Funds, but is earmark's the wrong word, but directed towards significant trail improvements that for our area. The multimodal emphasis corridor, like congestion management, is federal money that can be spent anywhere within the urban area on federal aid eligible roads, but again is a construct of our MPO that limits it to preferably multimodal enhancements. They look to capacity improvements as sort of a last resort, but they're trying to increase mobility generally throughout the US 41 corridor in both counties. The Transportation Regional Incentive Program, while we're presenting this to you today as part of the total package of project priorities, is something that the MPO will talk about at a later date. But that is state funding. It has historically come from dock stamp revenue. It's managed partially through the governor's office and working with the Department of Economic Opportunity. This money has increasingly found itself into economic development programs, and so less and less of it's going to transportation. It is, unlike some of these others, it's not a gas tax revenue thing. It's a discretionary revenue source, and they've used that discretion to fund some other important programs at the state level. And then finally is the County Incentive Grant Program, is another one funded by the state with their gas taxes, and it is intended for counties like ours to make road improvements that benefit the state highway system. It doesn't end up being a lot of money, so what we look for are intersections with state roads or minor improvements on roads that are parallel to state roads that can benefit the system. And that one is not prioritized by our MPO at all, but it is one of the projects that we'll submit to the state early summer.
So, and that was my point, just to point out that, that these different pots of money that we're looking at in this list and creating these priorities to go through, that it's not the same as our capital improvement program. That's different. So these are opportunities for us to tap into these other funds and to make priorities for those. And then I just also want to make a comment about the 41 multimodal emphasis corridor, and that is a project that has been focused on by the college, by everyone down there, and I think, John, you alluded to this as well, that this is something that has been in the program stages with DOT. I know that there had been a lot of information sent up to DOT and back and forth, and about where the potential roundabout might be located. But this is something we need to move forward, so I'm glad to see it being specifically called out. I think this is going to make a big change down in that location. Everybody asks, why don't you have landscaping? But I think this is a real opportunity. Again, there's no specific funding at this time, was a question I asked. Just because we make it a priority doesn't mean that it's funded through construction, right, Clark? And we don't even really have funding for design yet?
The specific project you're talking about for 41 in the school and airport area is being undertaken, I assume, with in-house resources at FDOT level, so they're doing some planning level work. If they are interested in the project, they tend to find a way to get those kinds of things funded, so we could see design earlier than later. This is, however, constructed as a request to start funding the project, so if they don't manage to do the design, we'd see it show up 5 or 6 years from now if it's the most competitive and viable project. So to answer your question, as far as I know, design and construction are not funded.
Okay.
It's for the new fifth year.
What?
For the new fifth year.
Well, this list will inform the state's decision-making this fall that will go into a work program the legislature will see this time next year, so when they're in session in early 2017, and be for the work program that goes into effect that summer. So this is a long lead time thing. It's about an 18-month process from beginning to it showing up in the program, and then 4, 5, 6 more years before you work your way to the year of funding sometimes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Bussell.
Yeah, I'm optimistic that the ongoing North Manatee Network Alternatives Study FDOT is doing will highlight Canal Road and Ellington Gillette as very important roadways for doing something about the traffic. And so we'll just have to wait until that comes out, but your concerns about Canal Road will probably be addressed in that, I would think.
Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner DiSabatino.
Yeah, thanks for this report and for SAGI meeting yesterday. Along the 41 area that we're talking about with the colleges and Bullies Creek, can any of the separate pool of money from safety dollars be allocated so that way it wouldn't be MPO money per se, just like they did with the sidewalks and streetlights?
I suppose it's theoretically possible if they're in their studies they found that there were safety issues that could or needed to be addressed. I don't think it's a certainty.
Okay. And just like when Billy Hadaway was here last week, he was talking about evaluating these pedestrian islands, so to speak, after the fact, after they're in, to see if there's new lighting and striping and all kinds of things needed. So he went over that the last time he was here. So they'll be doing that after, so that'll be an additional to this. So, thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
Yes, Madam Chair. Commissioner Benek mentioned about landscaping. I am really big on landscaping. When you travel these different places and you see the theme that they have when they put sidewalks and lights and culture and different landscaping theme that they have, it beautifies the intersection and things like that. When DOT and when we get funds from MPO, is there any money in there for that? How does the other counties such as Miami-Dade and Broward and all these major kind of be landscaping like that? Where does that funding comes from? When they do intersection work, you see palm trees, you see everything coming up, beautification, all of that coming up at the same time. Is there another pocket of money out there that we're not tapping in, or could you answer that for me, please?
I think
Yeah,
Mr.
Ron
Schwab
has it in
wants
his
to
other
address it.
pocket, right? Yeah.
Landscaping has been a priority for the board. We presented twice to the board the options for landscaping. Just the gateways were over $1 million. The problem we've had is we're still not recovered from the recession. We don't have maintenance dollars.
Right.
At one time, we turned down $1 million of FDOT money on State Road 64 east of I-75
Remember.
because we could not afford to maintain that. FDOT will give you some of the material. They have dollars for material, but you have to maintain it. We haven't had the maintenance dollars.
I know we've talked about it before on Interstate 275 out there in Ellerton. It looks beautiful, and I consistently have people ask us, why don't we do this all the time? I don't believe we actually did it.
No, that was FDOT did that.
FDOT,
That was they call that enhanced landscaping.
And it looks beautiful, and it takes up property value. It helps bring business to that area also. So I just want to ask that question. Now, maybe there's something in the future that we can do, but it's hard to turn down money, that kind of money for land. What $1 million worth of landscaping would do for intersections and things around here instead of paving everything with, cement,
We'll put it back in the budget. It's your budget. If you have the money, we'll get it installed and maintained.
I know,
It's just
Commissioner
we just haven't had that luxury.
Commissioner Benek had brought this up several times. I know about the landscaping. I became a big seller since the city of Palmetto because we really bold into landscaping. Landscaping does wonders for property value and increase the beautification of people traveling. It also makes them spend more money.
Absolutely agree.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to go next. I've got several things I just want to bring up and touch base on. Talking about safety dollars, there was a study done that FDOT did down at Verna and Verna Bethany on State Road 70. And it warrants turn lanes, but not enough for safety dollars. And there's a lot of accidents down that way, as you know, Clark, you and I've talked about it. So I just wanted to bring it up to keep it on your radar. When you're looking at these priorities, we definitely need to figure out a way to probably get those turn lanes done because there's an awful lot of accidents there.
Bad ones.
At those two intersections. Lorraine Road between State Road 70 and 64, I know that's a sore subject, I'm just mentioning it. Big ditches on both sides, but there is a lot of development that's going to be taking place along there. So I just wanted to mention it. The other thing I wanted to bring up, just to touch base here up on the dais, you've all heard about State Road 64 there at Greyhawk's Landing. And I think you probably read in the article about FDOT, and I did have a conversation with them about that, and they are doing a study at this point to look at 64 along there. So they're aware, and we're just going to have to kind of give it some time to see what they come up with as a solution. So just wanted the people along there to know that we are on top of it. We're looking at it. In fact, I actually sent a few emails out to some different residents regarding that, so.
Can I dialogue with you
Yes,
on that?
ma'am, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because we have been receiving emails regarding that. And I know that they're looking at the Rye and the 64, and I assume they're looking holistically since this is kind of just right next door almost.
Yeah, they're looking at
with the
all of
Greyhound.
64 from 75 on down past Lorraine.
Okay.
They're looking at the whole thing, it's my
Over the
understanding.
Church Bayside and all that.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's my understanding. So,
Good.
Commissioner DiSabatino.
In our upcoming budget cycle, Ron, perhaps you can have a suggestion, a line item, what it would cost for landscaping in our medians and what it would break down to ad valorem-wise and millage-wise, and that way we'll know what we're talking about, comparing apples to apples.
We've submitted it before, we will submit it again.
That
Okay.
you have, I've seen it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, and just on that landscaping thing, I mean, one of the things that's done in cities, it's not done so much in counties, but you have these business improvement districts where people are willing to pay for landscaping maintenance. And, you know, and as we get into our more urbanized areas, that might be an opportunity to look if there's a way to do, you know, I mean, Palm Air has a landscape district, an MSBU, thank you. I couldn't remember if it's a TU. I think it's a TU. It's an MSTU. Yeah, I think it's an MSTU.
Different ones.
So those kind of things for certain areas, maybe if when this does start to take shape and landscaping is an important part, maybe we can organize the players, and I know they've already got many groups to look at, you know, the airport and the college and maybe looking at ways so that the county doesn't have to bear the responsibility of the maintenance and that DOT right of way. So hopefully we're looking at innovative ideas like that.
Thank you.
I'm going to piggyback on that. I was going to bring that up, Commissioner Benak. You know, out in Lakewood Ranch and the surrounding areas out in there, the medians are all landscaped and they all have sprinkler systems and so forth. But we pay for those in our CDD fees. So it's wonderful to have, and it looks wonderful, but of course, the county does not pay for those. You know, the residents pay for them. So that is an option that should be looked at, I think, in some of these different areas. I know on State Road 70, I've been having some conversation along there with some of the residents that would like some landscaping done. So
We've worked with FDOT on those kind of things on state roads before. The state will have an agreement with the county to maintain it. It won't do it with the residents or the businesses.
Right.
And then we need an assurance from the businesses and the residents that there's a mechanism. So should they stop, the rest of the citizens don't pay for it. So there's, we've worked through these before. We almost got there before we had the recession.
right. And the reason I really bring it up is because we all know that you know, your department has really been cut to the core, and we have a lot of roads that need repair. So when, in looking at your budget, you know, I would much rather see you putting your money toward repairs to the roads than landscaping. So that's all, why I mentioned it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board?
Just to clarify, this, I just want to make sure, Clark, you're going through this item by item. We're going to talk about the second, you want a resolution. You want us to vote on the motion for the first adoption? How do we want to do that? Because there's four motions that are needed here. First table, and then you're going to talk about the second table? Because we haven't talked about that specifically.
Either way would be fine with me if you want to save them all to the end. I think they stand alone enough that you could take them in order,
I
though,
thought
if
we
that
didn't have it.
works better for the board.
Okay.
I couldn't care less.
I'm sorry.
You want us to go ahead and
Yeah,
take
go
a
ahead.
motion on the first one? I'll go ahead, a motion to adopt Table 1, Manatee County 2016 Transportation Project Priorities, and authorize staff to transmit Table 1 to the MPO and Florida Department of Transportation for the state's 2016 Work Program Development Process. And that's just Table 1.
All right, we have not opened this yet to public comment, so we have a motion and a second on the first item. So I'm going to go ahead and see if there's anyone from the public that would like to come up and speak on that first item. Seeing none, we'll go back to the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is approved unanimously. Moving forward, the second one.
The second item is presented in the report and as Table 2 in your packet, and it shows a comparison between the projects of the 2040 Long Range Transportation Plan and the previous one, the 2035 Long Range Transportation Plan. These are roads that belong in their financially feasible or cost feasible plan. They're the roads we think we can afford to build over the next 25 years, and with federal dollars only. So this does not reflect stuff that might be locally funded or from other sources. On this list, the main changes are that a road that was previously shown as Upper Manatee River Road and Fort Hammer Road is now just shown as the Upper Manatee River Road portion of it. The 44th Avenue project has been removed from this list because it's now not just cost feasible, but in the existing plus committed network is funded by the county. The Port Encouragement Zone flyover, which was previously cost feasible, now due to project costs elsewhere and lower revenue estimates for the long range period, is now in the needs plan. And, wow, I lost track of my fourth point, I apologize. The 60th Avenue project now is a project that is cost feasible with local funds, so it's not on the federal funded part of the list. So the main changes in terms of what is or isn't cost feasible, once you deal with the funding buckets, if you will, is the portion of Fort Hammer that was previously on the list and the Port Encouragement Zone flyover. The Port Encouragement Zone flyover, by virtue of being on the needs plan, means that the MPO recognizes it as something that's important, just didn't have funding to go that far, but should funding become available or some of the other priorities not prove to be feasible or otherwise desirable to proceed with, it can be swapped out, but it can be promoted to the cost feasible list if circumstances fall into place. That's an important distinction, because if it's not in the needs plan at all, you first have to go through the process of showing that in fact is a need before you can promote it to that list. The request from staff is that you recognize the 2040 portion of Table 2, which I labeled Section A in your packet, as the new major project priority list for Manatee County.
Commissioner Bussell.
Okay, I brought this up in my pre-brief with Saji, but item number 6 on Table A, Upper Manatee River Road is a 4-laning of Upper Manatee River Road, and it's obviously a complementary project with Fort Hammer Bridge. However, I think that we, the county, should go forward to the MPO changing that item number 6 to / Fort Hammer Road and put them together and have them considered together. The money it flows down, and you draw the line where the money runs out. So if it runs out with just half enough to do the Upper Manatee River and Fort Hammer, then you do the Upper Manatee River first, perhaps, and then the other part second. But I think we need to get the MPO conditioned to considering them as one project, because I wouldn't want to go out to Parish and try to answer the questions of why didn't you include Fort Hammer Road in that project if we don't do that. So that's my motion.
The motion?
Motion.
I'll second it for discussion.
All right.
Be clear on the motion.
Madam Clerk, can you, it kind of got by me as well, would you repeat that motion, please?
Say it again, Larry.
Yeah.
I would like, my motion is that we portray the project priority number 6 as Upper Manatee River Road / Fort Hamer Road.
All right, any discussion? Commissioner Burnett?
Yeah, and before we vote on this, I mean, this is kind of a holistic list, and I asked the same question, what happened to Fort Hamer Road? And my understanding was we're Upper Manatee River, we're doing these functional improvements to Fort Hamer Road, right?
To both Upper Manatee River and Fort Hamer as part of the bridge project.
Functional improvements, not capacity improvements is what you're talking about. You're talking about,
I'm talking about the 4-laning.
right. He's talking about the 4-laning, so that's a capacity improvement. The only question I had, and I did ask this, so you have Upper Manatee River Road, 4 lanes, then you got a 2-lane bridge, then you got a 4-lane Fort Hamer Road. And you've got no plans for an extension of Fort Hamer Road. Doesn't go anywhere. There's no program, no design, no road where Fort Hamer dumps into 301. I'm just wondering whether or not, even though I agree that on a long-range plan, there should be a 4-laning of Fort Hamer eventually, and a 4-laning probably at the bridge, because otherwise you're going to have this kind of funny, so that's my comment on that. I don't see a problem with that, but my concern was more that the Central Manatee Network alternatives, when I'm looking at these priorities, and much as we talked about the US 41 multimodal emphasis and all of that happening, we don't have, you've got a highway down there, you're talking about road diet down there, but Central Manatee Network alternatives, we know what a choke point that is. We don't know what the answer is, we don't know what it's going to cost until the study is done. But I asked, I said, this to me is a placeholder, but I'm thinking that is going to become a bigger priority once we know what we're talking about in an improvement. So I said I would support this for now, but I think these priorities need to be changed around a little bit. I don't see the multimodal emphasis corridor, other than some of the small stuff we've been doing with the sidewalks and all of the crossings. I think that's all good, but if we're going to take on a much bigger project, I think that we got to reorganize these so the Central Manatee Network alternative, whatever it is a higher priority. So guess what I'm saying is I'm making this point, but we could do it okay for today, as long as we can change next year once we know kind of what's out there as far as improvements.
Dialogue.
Yes, please.
Actually, I really believe that for the Upper Manatee River Road, Fort Hamer Road project, we either do them both or we don't do either one. That's what I would say. Because I wouldn't, like I say, I wouldn't want to have to justify doing one and not the other.
Right.
And I don't think any of those 6 compete with each other as we have it right now. If there's a need to reprioritize, we could, but the first 3 you're probably not going to change. 15th Street East is higher priority than the network alternatives, in my opinion. But, it may be that we need to do some adjusting, because I agree with you that number 5 is probably, you can't really reflect the higher priority as it stands right now.
That's what bothers me when you're talking about the 2035 and the 2040 long transportation plan. I mean, things just change so rapidly when we're making this. So, any other comments on this motion in second?
Can I make just one? But I agree with Betsy 100%. I mean, I'm totally supportive of all this, and I totally agree with Larry's comments, but this is going to have to be addressed way before 2035, and hopefully we can come up with a funding source, even if you had to toll it for a while until it's paid for. I mean, a joint, with the state, there's got to be creative ways to fund it, because we all know how much it's going to cost. We all talk about it, and in the meantime, Bradenton and Palmetto are probably going to be selling the properties where we need to, have our approaches. So hopefully somebody's looking at all that. And I know I brought this up before, and everybody says we're still doing the study. If somebody could just tell us what the status is and. Because we may have to do what was planned years ago, elevated bridge flyover like they do in Tampa, unfortunately, that
And
goes
there
to
is
the
more
Red Vine.
growth in that area.
Yeah.
Even Lakewood Ranch, so.
But it's like really, bad now. And I just can't imagine waiting until 2035 just to do the planning.
Well, the plan is a 2040 plan, which means it's planning the funding from the end of our current capital improvement program, so year 6 through 2040, so the 25 years after our current programs. So some of it will happen sooner rather than later. It's difficult to say exactly what it represents in the LRTP without talking to the MPO staff, but by implication, it looks like they're trying to set aside money for the Central Manatee Network in small amounts to deal with small projects, because the allocation is $3 million in one 5-year block, 3 in the next, and then 6 in a $10 million or 10-year block after that. So the implication is they're thinking about a $600,000 a year allocation, but advanced traffic management's about $1 million a year. Projects could be selected from that target improvements within CMNAA. The multimodal emphasis corridor for US 41, both bridges are a form of US 41. One's Business 41, one's US 41 proper. That's $3 million a year now in the program, so it's a higher allocation for MMEC and the Manatee portion of the project now. And then finally, the congestion management system. So CMNAA doesn't survive on its own. It can inform decisions we make about other pools of money. We'll need to weigh that against our other projects. We're working on a countywide bicycle pedestrian plan that will compete for transportation alternatives dollars and multimodal dollars in some cases and so forth. But there are other opportunities than just the CMNAA bucket itself to implement things within the study area. It covers a large portion of the urbanized area of the county.
All right, Commissioner Smith?
Yes, Madam Chair. I understand exactly what Mayor Buss is talking about, and it's some serious issues we got to look at with roads. Even right over there in Pell Meadow, Colonial Cove, and the mobile home parks have been sold, and we look for major development going there. You got 260 acres right there on the waterfront, in Pell Meadow. And so we're going to have to be creative and package these things together. And he's right, I wouldn't do one over the other. It needs to be together. It wouldn't make any sense, in my opinion, because of the fact that by not doing it that way, we'll cause more confusion than anything.
And
Well, just for discussion, along with the Upper Manatee River Road and the Fort Hamer Road is the bridge, which is 2 lanes. And who knows what the alternative study is going to say about that. Probably, I would venture a guess that it'll say 4 lanes are required. And it occurs to me also that Central Manatee Network alternatives that study could kick out a lot of different projects. And I think that's what they're trying to do, is to just put a planning wedge in there so that, we can address some of the smaller projects perhaps. Another bridge across the river might be one of the alternatives too. And that could
Took
be.
us 100 years to get the one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That could be a bunch of money.
Well, in the meantime, we still have a motion and a second on the board.
Mr. Schiller.
Yes, Ron.
If I might, please. We have talked to the MPO, and your suggestion, sir, is the MPO's in supportive of that. We have / Fort Hamer Road. And for the viewing public, this board did authorize Public Works to design the current Fort Hamer Bridge under construction for another bridge. The way we've got it lined up, there's an opportunity for 2 more lanes. And the reason we couldn't do the 4 lanes to start with is because we don't have 4 lanes on north-south side of the bridge. So this needs to be a continuous project. So I welcome that suggestion. We missed that. We should have it Upper Manatee River Road / Fort Hamer Road.
Right.
And then somebody in the future will be working on the next 100 years for another bridge for the 2 lanes.
100 years, that's right.
Can I ask
And
what
to answer your question, I've talked to Lawrence with FDOT, and the Central Network analysis is still underway. They didn't have anything to provide to me last week. So.
Commissioner Burnett.
So is it implied, I just want to make sure that it's implied if we have Upper Manatee River Road / Fort Hamer Road, that includes the bridge? Is that implied by that?
That's a good question.
Great question. I'll have to ask.
All right.
We
Well,
can put
I'm
bridge in
obviously
there. We can put
supportive
slash
of the
bridge.
motion,
Yeah.
so.
But the bridge won't be, that's a capacity. We did that with impact fees. We would build the next one with impact fees too, I would think.
Right, okay. Right.
So we wouldn't really need to put that in there.
Right.
All right, and let's go ahead and move forward. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Public comment
Aye.
on the motion. Public comment on the motion.
I'm sorry, I
Thank
got ahead of
you.
myself. You're correct. We'll open it for public comment at this point, if anyone would like to come forward and speak on this topic. Not seeing anyone, we'll close public comment. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is unanimously approved.
But I think we still need to approve the.
Yeah, we have two more.
Well, no, we need to approve the overall. I think the only motion was to modify, that the one we just acted on was just to
Right.
modify number 6. So I'm going to move to approve Section A of Table 2, comparisons of 2035 and 2040 cost feasible projects, with the rest stated, with the change we just made.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Public comment.
Golly day, I'm having a problem with that, aren't I? Anyone in the public want to come forward? I'm trying to get the time certain. Sorry. All right, I don't see anyone. Public comment closed. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay.
3 times.
All right. Phew, it took 3 times.
Yeah, there's 4 motions here, that's probably.
All right, what about number 3 and number 4?
Number 3 is for 15th Street East. We're getting close to the end of the project development environmental study, and I use we generally. It's actually a FDOT administered project, but they should have a public hearing to select the preferred alternative soon. We expect it to be the same that the board endorsed, which in a very brief description calls for a 3-lane section throughout the corridor, roundabouts where they can put them, but signalized intersections at a couple of the major ones like State Road 70 and 63rd. This corridor is over 4.5 miles long and is a little bit more than the state can do in a single undertaking. And so staff is asking for the authority to work with MPO and FDOT to try and break it into segments that make some sense, with some focus on the central portion around State Road 70. There are a lot of businesses just north and south of there where it looks like there's a lot of pedestrian and bicycle traffic. We think it makes sense to try and target that as the first area. I'll put an aerial photo on the document camera. And it's very difficult to pick up here. It's because the line works so fine, but roughly from 63rd to around 49th, which would take it just north of the Y intersection of 15th Street East and 301 Boulevard. So it would clean up that intersection, work south through the State Road 70 intersection, and improve that area where there's a lot of small businesses with lots of access and a lot of pedestrian and bikes around there. So we're asking that we be allowed to focus on that area first with our state and regional partners, looking at the section south of there as a second priority, and then finally the 301 Boulevard section to the north as the third highest priority. And this is strictly to sort of streamline the funding, try and get some right-of-way and construction dollars in for one section first, and then proceed to the others when it makes sense.
All right. Guess what I'm going to do now? Open public comment. Anyone from the public want to come forward on this? All right, we'll close public comment. And what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner DeSabatino with a second by Commissioner Whitmore. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is approved.
And then finally, we have a project for emergency vehicle prioritization. This was, you may have heard referenced as emergency.now. The funding that's in the work program is coming up in the next fiscal year. It requires operating support of staff in our TMC that is not funded, and it was only going to cover a portion of the network. We believe that it's a project that can ultimately have some value to the county when done right. We just think that the timing is not right for now. So we're asking for board support of reallocating those dollars for another advanced traffic management system improvement. And in this case, it's expanding our fiber network and vehicle detection and cameras in the North County. We have fiber network across the river and along 301, but it does not extend very far north on US 41, US 19, Ellington Gillette, or 301 north of somewhere around 60th or Erie Road. So we're starting to see some more signals along those roads. We believe it's important to enhance our ability to communicate with those signals and also do the incident management and vehicle counting and survey type data for that area.
All right. Commissioner Bustle.
I have a question for Clark. How do you propose to sort of scope that item number 4, figure out which intersections and which signals should be monitored and therefore possibly controlled for priority?
Some of these are going to be on state roads, so it'll be our coordination between FDOT and our traffic design staff, so other folks under Sajid Kamia in traffic management. We would like to cover as many of the signals as we can, but we tend to look at the places where incidents are more common, or if the incidents aren't there, they're the routes that people tend to gravitate towards during incidents, because those are the kinds of areas where we need to optimize timing as the roads get used as the alternate routes. So, when there's a crash on an interstate, it's not so much about, there's some portion of managing traffic on the interstate, but it's the ripple effect of what it does to the rest of the county road network when everybody moves off of the interstate. And so we often are monitoring locations far away from the crash itself.
I don't see anyone else on the board, so let's open to public comment. Anyone in the public want to come forward? All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment. What's the pleasure of the board?
I move approval of the recommended motion number 4 in this list of motions.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Benek and a second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is approved unanimously. Thank you, Clark.
Thank you for your time.
Good job.
We're going to go ahead right now. I had hoped to get this done before we broke for lunch at 12, but I don't think that's going to happen. And I have been requested by a commissioner to take a 5-minute break. So we'll recess for 5 minutes. Next is the Port Authority agenda. Commissioner Bennett.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and open up the Manatee County Port Authority meeting of February 23rd, 2016. I'm going to call it to order. First of all, I'd like to thank my other Port Authority members and board members, and that means you guys, for allowing us to have this meeting today rather than at the port. We only had a couple items on. Matter of fact, item number 2 is being deferred, so we really only had a couple consent agenda items.
Okay.
We didn't know if 2 would be done or not, and in fact, it's really not ready for prime time yet, so it made sense rather than, bringing everybody out to the port. It's not just us. We usually get a really good crowd there that comes out to go ahead and make that happen at today's meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up for public comment like we do at the port. We, of course, open it up for public comment in the beginning at the Port Authority. So is there anyone who would like to address any of the items on the Port Authority agenda? If so, now is your opportunity to come forward. And the only items we have on the agenda are the consent agenda at this time. Okay, seeing no one come forward, we have the consent agenda in front of you. Are there any comments, anything that anyone would like to address on the consent agenda? Or Mr. Bukaris, anything you want to state about the consent agenda?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. No, not at this point. I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Okay.
And again, as you already mentioned, we didn't find it reasonable to bring the whole board up to the port just for these few consent agenda items.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the Port
Move to
Authority?
approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Port Authority Commissioner Whitmore, seconded by Port Authority member Robin DiSabatino. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, motion passes. And so now we'll go ahead and move right to Executive Director comments.
Madam Chair, I have none at this time since I need the visual aids. We'll save those since you have a very full county agenda for the next Port Authority meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. I do have one item that I wanted to just bring up, and I think you all hopefully received an email about this. I had received a phone call from Holly Greening, Executive Director of the Tampa Bay Estuary Program, and I know, Robin, you're chairing that right now? She had asked about perhaps we would like to have, the Port Authority would like to have a member on the Estuary Board Management Committee, I think it's called. And the reason she said that kind of was intriguing to me is because right now there's this regional sediment management strategy that Army Corps is pursuing. And since it's all about Tampa Bay, and of course the port being on Tampa Bay, it made sense for us to have someone to sit on that. And George agreed to sit on the policy board and or the management committee. And Robin, I think your policy board just voted
Yes,
to.
we voted to accept Manatee, Port Manatee on the advisory board, and that's great because, it is a regional effort, and we do have some spoils to share, so they're really excited about it, and so are we, so it was great. And also, Pasco County was inducted into the policy board, so we added another county. A third of their county is affected by the Tampa Bay area, so that was great to add them on. So we had 2 additions last Friday. So thank you, and I think you already attended the management board last week.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
thank
George
you.
is here, and he can tell us about how excited he is to go to another meeting. But no, we really do appreciate the
Glad
fact
it's you, George.
that he's going to participate.
I am thrilled. And like you said, I attended the last one. Unfortunately, I'm going to get off on a bad start and miss the first meeting. They're quarterly in May. My son's graduating at that time, so I'm going to miss that
That's
one.
more
But
important.
Can you
I'll
send someone
make
else
the-
from your team?
we will. We're talking about Dave Sanford. He's
Good.
probably going to attend.
Good, thank you.
Okay, excellent. And this will be good with our dredge study that we've got ongoing and the discussions that we've had, the Army Corps. It makes sense for us to be tuned into everything that's going on a bigger stage. So, Carol, you had?
Not on this, on.
Okay.
Right. And also,
Robin, did you have something?
also, Rob Brown attends for us. He's very, very knowledgeable about it, and he attends my briefings with Holly, so he's a good one to bounce things off of, and he's well on board of what's going on, and we're so glad that the port came on board as well.
Great. Vanessa?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to mention, I'm pretty sure I saw an email also where we're going to have a member on the T-BARTA board, is that correct? T-BARTA? Did I read something about
From
that?
the port? No, I think
Port
it was.
Authority? Not at the port?
No.
It's what they were talking about, I think.
It was, yeah.
T-BARTA.
Oh, well, that regional stuff kind of blends together.
know,
but
I
No, it
actually
was
had to
the
look
Regional
too.
Planning Council that, we
the
don't have
Regional Planning
anyone, though the port is very, T-BARTA
Active.
does talk
Yes.
frequently with the port, and they're very engaged in the discussions about what's going on regional transportation, especially as it relates to freight and those kind of things.
I had always wondered why Port Manatee was not more involved in that. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, we are much more involved now, Commissioner. We are looking to, as you all have directed us to do, and we're happy to do that, to meet with other counties that are on T-BARTA to make them understand the benefits of the port.
Good.
Okay, so not going to open it up for public comment again because nobody was here last time, so, but I will open it up for commissioner comments. Commissioner Whitmore?
Just two things. Is it Kinder Morgan that does racetrack?
No, it's Transmontane.
Transmontane, sorry.
Transmontane.
I was just wondering how the status was of all that. I think the public would be interested to know what a success story that is, and then I have one other thing.
That's correct, Commissioner. Transmontane, as you all know, reached an agreement for refueling all of the racetrack stations between essentially southern Pinellas all the way to Naples. So all of those counties, south and a little bit north of us, now depend on the port and the Port Authority to supply all of those gas stations. And I think this is just the beginning of a greater expansion in fuel coming out of Port Manatee, and including, of course, FPL, who has two tanks at the port. Now, with the price of gas, I understand they're running on fuel a little bit more than on natural gas because it's even faster and more efficient. So the port is playing a greater role in the energy source for counties south of us to Naples, and then, of course, southern Pinellas. So it's quite a positive development.
And my last comment is, can you give an update on the Southgate status with Air Products and how that's all going? I've had somebody ask me, and just so the whole public knows, then we don't have to do third party.
Well, we are moving very quickly and very positively on the development of the Southgate entrance. As you know, there was an agenda here on consent where we're utilizing $200,000 from the TIF program, and we are putting in funding from the port side as well as from Air Products. So we will have a brand-new south entrance reconfigured gate with direct access for one of our future petroleum partners, for Synergy, that has the adjoining land at the port. And that should be concluded or completed about probably September of this year. It's only a 3-month construction period.
Good, thank you.
Any other commissioners?
I have a
Commissioner
question
Sabatino.
regarding the status of Port Dolphin. Is that still on the back burner, or?
Good question. Port Dolphin, as you know, was a project aimed at supplying gas for Florida utilization, mostly for the power plants, for TECO, for FPL, from the port, from a floating gas facility. Because of the price of natural gas going the other way, essentially being cheaper for it to be exported than imported, that project essentially is no longer is a valid project. So we pulled that project from our list.
Is anyone going to utilize that pipeline that's there?
Well, the pipeline Gulfstream is already being used. This would have been another pipeline from a floating ship, a gas ship, pumping additional gas for the peak demand for gas in Florida, but there's such a oversupply, an abundant and inexpensive supply that it's no longer financially feasible for Port Dolphin to continue.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. And I just did want to point out, that in this legislative session, we are making progress, and it was one of the things that we voted on the consent agenda as far as a change to support the position that the legislature is taking on increasing funding for the port. What is it exactly, the port?
It's a Port Financing Commission, FSTED, or the Port Financing, let's say, committee. And that program is very beneficial. It helps with matching funds for ports. Now, statutorily today, it's 15 million. It's being raised to 25 million.
25 million.
Ports still need to match 50-50.
So that's a real opportunity for us to have the additional funding, so that's a good thing. Okay, is there any other business for the Port Authority at this time? Okay, seeing nothing come forward, I'm going to go ahead and close the Port Authority meeting. Thank you for indulging us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank
Good
you.
seeing you. All right, next on our agenda is the dashboard report for January 2016. Any comments from the board? I'm going to go ahead and open that up to public comment. Anyone like to come forward and speak on the dashboard for January 2016? All right, we'll close public comment. All right, next we have a legislative update. Nick.
Morning, Commissioners. Mr. Slant, Mr. Palmer, Nick Azera, Information Outreach. There are less than 3 full weeks remaining in the legislative session, so I emailed each of you yesterday with an update from Kerry Roth's office, but I wanted to touch on some of the highlights of that report and to see if you have anything else that you want us to be looking at as the session here wraps up. You've probably seen some of the reports that both the House and the Senate have approved their budget plans, so the next step in the process will be for the leadership to identify the main priorities that they have going into the conference. After those priorities are identified, that broad allocations are made, and then they make appointments to the conferences that will then publicly vet the budget allocations. We're expecting any day this week that those conference appointments could be made, and once that occurs, things really get hypercharged and move very quickly. And so I thought it might be a good time early next week to make a visit one last time this session. A very small group of us, if we're able to go and talk about our funding priorities for radio, our inlet management projects, and then the Lake Manatee project as well. Before getting to that, though, as you also are probably aware, there was a decision that was handed down by the First District Court of Appeal last week regarding juvenile justice, and the way I understand it, Mr. Palmer can probably provide greater detail, but it's basically another judicial ruling determination that the county's position is the accurate one when you match it against the statutes, and so upwards of 100. The state could in fact owe the counties upwards of $100 million, as we've contended all along. The pressure then. Senator LaValle, has sponsored the bill to rectify the billing system going forward in a 50-50 split, and I know he's working both sides, House and Senate, to garner support for that. But it seems to be a moving target every day. You hear it depends on who you talk to whether or not that's going to reach the finish line this year. But after that court decision came down, my understanding is he met with the DJJ secretary and urged her to make that part of her funding request going forward as well, and that puts more pressure on DJJ, the administrative side, to make this situation correct. So, is there anything else you want to add on that, Mickey, DJJ?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think you've covered it.
So again, kind of a moving target, and at this point, the Senate version, I think there remains 2 committee hearings, and then the House side, it hasn't been taken up, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to happen this year. So we'll keep you posted on the latest in those regards. I think you're all aware there our hometown, the Patty legislation passed and will be sent to the governor's office soon if it hasn't already been, and then the governor has a period of time where he can either sign it or it automatically goes into law. Should be only a formality. Carrie Roth, our lobbyist in Tallahassee, had touched base with the governor's office, answered a few last-minute questions, and while she was there, she was talking about our funding projects to, again, make them familiar with them in case the legislature does include those as part of the final budget. There were a couple of other bills of preemption that would preempt local government that we've mentioned in the weekly reports, and I mentioned also in the highlights yesterday. But one specifically that we're keeping a very close eye on would change the process for only 6 counties, and we're one of them, don't ask me why, on the COPCN process. And I believe the board in December, you adopted a new ordinance on COPCNs, but as a quick way of explaining this, it would basically circumvent the business decision that this board makes when selecting a COPCN private vendor. It would create a new quasi-judicial process that those vendors who are not selected by the county could then go for a writ of certiorari, I believe it's called, and then ultimately it would be decided by an authority other than yourselves. So Carrie and FAC are working on this one daily, and I think we're in a good position. I can't say exactly what that'll be, but I would expect within the next week that issue will be resolved to the better. And I think those are the main issues. Commissioner Smith had also asked about the open carry legislation. There's a key Senate committee chair who said that he will not take up that open carry legislation this session, so that appears to be a non-starter in the Senate. And if there are other issues, I'm happy to address them. But again, I wanted to bring those big-ticket items to you and preemption issues to make you aware of them and to let you know that we'll be working diligently here during the final 2.5 weeks to make sure our interests are protected.
And if I can add to what Nick said, he and I had a conversation late yesterday afternoon, late, almost, I think it was like 6 o'clock. We are looking at perhaps going up there on Monday, coming back quickly on Tuesday. Very quick trip, just to touch base with some of the representatives and senators that are, going into conference on some of our items like the P25 and so forth. So that is kind of what we're looking at right now. It'll be a quick trip, or at least we are expecting it to be a quick trip. And obviously, we can't ever say what might come up, but at this point, that's the plan. Betsy, you're on the board. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I am concerned about this preemption thing because we sat in a committee meeting while we were up there for the Patty bill and we heard some of this stuff. I'm concerned that they've thrown us into this mix.
They have.
I do find this to be somewhat an attack on home rule, if you will. I mean, we've been able to set our destiny by adopting the ordinance that we did, spelling out very clearly what we think are requirements, but recognizing that we have quite an investment in our emergency services department, and this changes the standard. It's so tricky because when you listen to the folks talk about this bill and why they want it, and they say because they want to make sure that the counties are provided with this type of service and that there be a plan for providing emergency services. And we all said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Of course you want that. But what they really want is the ability to have somebody else, a private provider, provide this service. And if they can show, kind of like in a rezone process, so you think about that. Think of the quasi-judicial standard when we have to review a rezone. We don't have a lot of discretion. We have to follow the quasi-judicial standard of evidence. And this is what they're proposing to make that standard apply for us in choosing who provides emergency services. So this causes great concern for me that they've now thrown us in. I mean, it made sense for maybe some of these more rural counties that maybe don't have the type of resources that we have. I mean, You know, unless you guys see it differently, when I listened to the talk about this, it really I said, wow, they're really taking away some of the legislative authority that we have by changing the standard to quasi-judicial. I mean, it seems like it's just a little tweak, but it really is a big change from what legislative authority we have to pick who provides emergency services. And we may be faced with going with some private group because they had met the standard at a quasi-judicial level that perhaps they didn't think we established by utilizing our own group. Am I seeing that correctly?
If I could add to what Commissioner Benak said, I think that's why FAC is so involved in this topic, in this issue, because it affects all 67 counties the same way. You know, it's not something that we need taking place. I mean, they need to leave it at our discretion. But anyway, that's another reason that we're looking at perhaps going up on Monday. So
why is it only 6 counties?
Commissioner, you know, what'll often happen is there's a bad actor in the state, and there was a county of similar size to Manatee, and there was a legitimate concern with the way the process was followed or not followed in that county. And so the legislation at one point applied to all counties, but it's since narrowed down, and I think because of a population window, we're in it.
Oh.
And so we're you know, and Rob Eschenfelder has also worked closely with Kerry and I on this, and that brings up some legal problems as well for legislation that would only apply to 6 counties and not the 61 others. So I'm confident. I got off the phone with Kerry at 10 or 10:30 this morning, and she had spoken with an amendment sponsor who I think seems to be on the same page as we are, and so. My concern level is decreased a little today, and I'll keep you posted on that. And I think again she had let Representative Boyd know about this amendment sponsor's intentions, and so I think we're on good footing there. But I did want to bring your attention to it. The board, you meet as a body again twice before the end of the legislative session. Once as you're at your land use meeting, and then again just a couple of days before Sine dies. So if the board needs to take action and send a letter, I would give it to you Thursday. But also, we've been very active on that particular bill. So I think we're in good position.
Commissioner Whitmore.
2 things. First of all, shouldn't we at least have Betsy or somebody make a motion regarding this issue because it's not on our legislative platform? And we know it's very important to us. It's affecting us now. Shouldn't we have some kind of formal?
Well, Commissioner, you know, the position we've taken in years past is when this time of year, when there are preemption bills that would harm local government, we don't always have the time to wait for the entire board to meet on that. And so
No, but we're here now. I didn't
right,
know if
right.
it
So
would help.
you certainly could take a formal vote, but I prefer, you know, we'll take Kerry's lead on that, and she hasn't sounded the alarm to get the entire board involved yet. We've been, I think, working it pretty well on the staff level at this.
Rob Eschenfelder's been real involved too, hasn't he?
Yes.
And my other comment is, are you going to try to go up there with the dangerous dog bill and see if you could get the governor to sign it?
I'm sure it'll come up.
So you're
Well,
planning on this?
Commissioner, I mentioned.
Not on Monday.
Asking.
Not on my agenda.
Commissioner, Kerry Roth, as I mentioned,
Kerry was
it
gonna
came up.
See if he's coming to Manatee County at all.
We didn't get any indication that would happen.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes, Madam Chair. You know, when we were up there, Nick, I wasn't aware this was, you know, we listened to the debate. I still don't understand how we got mixed up in it. You know, that wasn't discussed when we was there.
It's because of our size.
Yeah, but, I mean, you say it's only 6 counties?
Yes, sir.
Because of our size.
Yeah, but it's more than 6 counties our size.
You're right, and I think I said early on. So don't ask me why. That I don't know how the window was crafted, so it just applies for those 6 counties. But I think, unfortunately, we're part of that group. Rob?
Madam Chair and Commissioners, this all started because of a decision by a circuit court judge. And what occurred was that a fire district, not a private provider,
Right.
came forward to a commission and said, we want to provide EMS service too, or at least a portion thereof. And unlike Mr. Palmer's office, the county attorney's office there, I read the transcript, and they provided not necessarily correct advice and told their board, well, you have to follow quasi-judicial procedures. And so even the board chair said, well, we didn't do that before. Well, are you sure? And the attorney said yes, and so they proceeded, and they denied the certificate. And so when the matter was before the circuit court, the order actually says, well, the county attorney's office was wrong. Your process isn't quasi-judicial. And because it wasn't quasi-judicial, the fire district wasn't entitled to it, and so I uphold the commission's order. The problem then came in that the fire district didn't like that policy decision, and so it approached its legislative member, and the legislative member filed the bill. When I first reviewed the bill, when Kerry forwarded it, I pointed out to Kerry, who also is an attorney and knows, that there's a provision in the Florida Constitution that talks about certain prohibited local bills, that you can't adopt local bills unless certain criteria are met, because you're supposed to legislate for the whole state. And so the addition of these additional counties is, in my belief, with all due respect to our legislature, an attempt to get around that prohibition and make it more legally defensible by saying that counties that are kind of all in this box all are impacted by this bill. And whether that flies or not in court is something that remains to be seen. And certainly if this bill does become law, we might have to have a discussion with you all as to whether we want to file suit to challenge the bill. But as I've explained to Kerry to help give her the talking points, the issue of granting certificates of public necessity and need have always been historically a matter of a business judgment of each county commission. And that is because every county has different market forces. Some counties have large fire departments and municipalities that take up the whole county that provide the service. It's done different ways, as you all know, in different counties. We have our own force within the county government. And as one of you mentioned while I was upstairs, part of the concern of the county is that we have invested a significant amount of our resources and training and so forth in that force. And if other market forces, be they private players or, in our case, fire districts, and I will tell you that if you don't already know, there is at least one fire district who is interested in doing this in our county, that come in and play in the marketplace, that can wreak havoc on our budget and the revenue that comes in, and also blurs the line as to what is the mission of the individual fire districts or whatnot. And part of this is grown up in Florida's embrace of fire districts. It's one of those things in Pinellas County. A lot of different counties fight this same fight because you have municipalities that have fire departments, but not all. And so then you have fire districts, but they don't cover every area. And so, in the grand scheme of things, should you just have a county-wide fire service? Maybe, maybe not. But that's something that politically hasn't able to be resolved or whatnot. And so I think that you're going to see a lot of fire districts, in my opinion, be more look at this, because as construction improves and fire hardiness improves, the traditional burning building or whatever that the fire departments have responded to become less and less. And so, right or for wrong, those districts might want to look at additional public safety things that they perform. But then you run into, where's the county already invested its resources? So at the very least, hopefully the legislature would need to provide some transition opportunity for if the county is going to get out of it for a way to transition out of it, but also to make a statewide policy. And I think that's the biggest concern, and that's why we have been, even without formal action of the board, telling Kerry to carry that message that this is a preemption of local authority. And it's not really well thought out. That it's clear that the legislation is being pushed without studying how this would fiscally impact the different counties and so forth. So there might be legal remedies. But I think Nick's comments about the board taking formal action might have to do with the fact that if Ms. Roth feels that she can address the bill in a way that doesn't require this board to take formal action and thus perhaps offend fire districts or whatnot, that might be the better way to go. So if that provides the additional information that you needed.
Thank you. Commissioner DeSabatino.
Yes, I briefly watched some of your meeting yesterday, the TDC meeting, and I think it was brought up about some discussion about 10% or so of the TDC funds going to law enforcement, and that's being discussed. Do you know where that is up there?
Yeah, Commissioner, Carrie and I spoke about that one as well this morning, and this is a proposal that Representative Hudson, I think, has brought up in the House, and it's actually part of an omnibus bill. Carrie's insight was that she didn't see it really gaining momentum in the Senate, but it's definitely something we're tracking closely. There would be an allowance, not a requirement, that the board could spend on public safety items, but the broader concern would be that there would have to be studies involved with that, and it would really maybe hinder your ability to spend those TDC dollars. I think there's another requirement that you would have to spend 35% of the TDC proceeds on marketing outside of what you're already spending with the firm that's already been approved. So it's an onerous bill that I know the tourism industry is not fond of, and traditionally when the Disneys and Orbitses get involved, it tends to tamper down. So I wouldn't expect it to be completely over this year, and it's maybe a discussion as to where this board wants to take a position in the future on whether TDC dollars could, if you could have a little more discretion. I know that that's been a recurring theme for many years, but you'd have to add some very specific allowances for what your request is.
Well, I think, it's open for discussion because it would be another funding stream for law enforcement. When we have a lot of these big events, it would be a funding stream to be able to pay for extra policing and so forth. So I hope it gets carried forward at least and open for discussion.
Commissioner Burnett.
Yeah, and I think I saw that on the FAQ or no, it was the cities, League of Cities had that listed, that they were supportive of that. And that it seemed that it was only applicable to certain areas. Are we in that?
Coastal.
Coastal, so we would be, that would be applicable. Yeah, I kind of agree. It'd be nice to have
Nice funding stream.
opportunity to have, we're so restricted with these revenues, and
Yeah,
that's.
we're adding that new beach patrol, and that's all
We
part
spend
of
a lot of
tourism.
money with tourists to come down here. I'd love to have it for roads as well, but a little bit at a time, a
Yeah.
little bit at a time.
Tourist around the roads.
Yeah.
Commissioner Smith.
Yes, Madam Chair. Nick, I missed your meeting yesterday, but in what that proposal is, that they're proposing to do, is the definition of public safety divine or is vague? Public safety would be adding another restroom.
Now, Commissioner, I believe it would have to be spent on public safety for specific events. If you tap dance a little bit here for me, I'll look the bill number up. And I think Carrie had also addressed it in the weekly report we provided to you yesterday. I'll look for that as we're speaking.
Okay. You're saying specific tourism events
Yes, sir.
that we may be having?
Yes, sir.
That you can utilize a certain percentage?
I believe that's
Law
correct.
enforcement for that?
I believe that's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, Nick, I don't have anybody else on the board, so thank you for the update.
We're done tap
Always
dancing.
informative.
We're done tap dancing.
Tap dancing.
I will get you some more information on this tourism development proposal. And, if need be, Commissioner, I mentioned the Senate not being receptive to that proposal at this point. But if that changes, maybe I can address you again next Thursday at land use.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Bussell.
I was going to bring this up under comments, but it could have a legislative impact. I'd like to ask the board, do you think we should go on record reaffirming our support for the red light cameras.
It's definitely legislative.
I'm not ready to do that.
I support
I
them.
support them.
I am, because I think, we went through a lot of heartache and agony to get that
We started.
passed and implemented in Manatee County, and I hate to see one or two people addressing their representative and getting it pulled or repealed somehow. That just doesn't sound right to me.
Where's it at, legislative?
Commissioners, this is always sensitive to talk about legislation that's moving in a public meeting because, some of the things that Rob mentioned, and but that's another item that I don't believe that the Senate has an appetite for taking up this year.
Okay.
It has. You're right. There was some press on the ban advancing through the House. And I believe that our contract, Mr. Barnott's in the office, it lasts through 2017, and that's a key point that you'll have to make a decision on renewing or extending that contract. But I don't believe, Commissioner Bussell, and again, I'll keep you abreast of the latest if that changes, but I don't believe in the Senate that it'll be taken up this year. It has not yet.
Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, could we get some additional information on that, whether it's going through the legislation or not? I briefly was following that bill, but there was some data on there was dealing with accidents.
Yeah, Commissioner, what's the saying about numbers? I won't butcher that statement, but I think there's two sides to that equation, and some traffic experts. I'm not one myself, you know that, but will tell you that part of the reason for the increased crash data is that crashes are up all over Florida because there's simply more people here, especially during the tourism season. I don't have to tell you that. So there are some who would draw the correlation that it's happening just at those intersections, but I don't believe the data would show that it's exclusive to the red light camera intersections. I don't have maybe Saji and those good folks have it. But I don't have that for all of your intersections throughout the county. But my understanding is that crashes are up everywhere because there's just more car traffic on the roads.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, well, I don't see anybody else on the board, so maybe this time. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Appreciate it. All right, well, good. So now we're going to go to citizens' comments on future agenda items. And I have one card, and he was just here. Philip Brown? I wonder if he's out.
No, I think he's gone.
Maybe he'll come in a minute.
Yeah. Well, I'll go ahead and open it up. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to come forward on any future agenda items? All right. Did you see Phil Brown out there, Nick?
I saw him pack everything up, so maybe.
No, I hate to. No, okay. Then we'll go ahead at this point and we'll close public comment. We'll move on now to commissioner comments. And Mr. Bussell, Chairman. Bleh.
I have another question.
Yes, sir.
Have we ever looked at using TDC dollars for maintenance of landscape, like at our gateways?
It's my understanding it's not permitted, but let's get Elliot to check on that.
Yeah, that's come up before
because
with
that's-
Keep Manatee Beautiful dollars on Cortez and
Yeah.
Manatee Avenue.
Yeah.
We're
must
at
be
the
for
corridors.
advertising, for promoting tourism.
Yeah, we should be.
So I'll get Elliot to check
Okay.
on that.
Thank you.
Anything else,
All I have.
Commissioner Bussell? Okay. Commissioner Smith?
No, I don't have anything.
Commissioner Burnett?
No, I just want to clarify, you're going to go to Tallahassee Monday and advocate for the positions we've already advocated for, basically?
Yes,
or-
we're just going to go back. They're getting ready to go into conference, so we just want to make sure that we hit them, since they are going into conference, we'd like to meet with some of those representatives that will,
You and Nick?
be on, that is the plan. But of course, it's open to any commissioner. It's not.
Oh, you
just
can have
me,
fun
but-
driving back and forth to Tallahassee in one day.
I know, it's going to be.
And
We just
just,
thought it might be worthwhile.
yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, and I've sent this to staff too, that, we have a lot of construction going on in the county. And it's shocking to a lot of people when they see the trees come down. And I ensure them that our land development code requires replacement of trees when they're removed, and that we also have pretty good landscape standards in our land development code. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be watching very carefully that the trees get replaced and that we meet our landscape standards, because there are certain areas that have been changed significantly, and we have certain developers that do landscaping way over the top, and then some that don't. So I'm going to be watching that, because it's going to be very important that we have landscaping this is a beautiful county to live in, and we need to continue to maintain that standard of beauty. So
Right.
this
Commissioner
commissioner is going to be
Burnett,
watching very carefully.
I would add, this commissioner is also going to be looking at some areas where you have businesses that are hard to see because of some of the landscape.
And I understand that sometimes happens, and you have
need
to
to look at
plan for the right tree in the right location and all those kind of good things, and bushes. But I've seen some of our other new gas stations out in the area don't seem to have as many trees as what I thought the code required, so I'll be looking for
That
it.
can be your mission,
Yeah.
It's
so to speak. Commissioner.
Okay.
Commissioner DeSabatino.
Yeah, I agree. And, when these new communities are going in, if they step up the landscaping around them, then it's less that we have to do moving forward. And I think that's the great opportunity to do it when, they're a captive audience rather than, in retrospect.
I will add to that, Commissioner, that I think it is a good idea. I agree with it, but we need to be smart about what we are requiring. Because I can tell you in a lot of areas where a lot of oak trees were planted, and it's been horrendous.
Oh, I know.
Having to deal with all that. So we probably, one day will need to look at that again.
We did.
All right, well, I'm going to start. Commissioner Whitmore, did you have anything?
Couple things. TDC meeting yesterday, Bradenton, where the old theater is, as you all read and the mayor reported, it's going to be a hotel 9 stories. There's 6 to 7 hotels, they reported yesterday, that are being built throughout the Manatee County, which is good. We need that. Our Land Development Code 101, the meeting for the public, and I've had a few friends that I've actually forwarded it
Oh,
to.
I'm glad you said that.
On
Yeah.
February 29th at 6 PM at the Convention Center, Bradenton Convention Center. And if you have any lists that you have residents that you deal with a lot, it wouldn't hurt to send them this if they want to attend. And so they could see exactly what the rules are and why we do what we do and why we can't do what they'd like us to do sometimes, or what we could do, So anyway, it'll be a good education. Also, I attended a conference, because they had it in Tallahassee Monday, the Medical Examiners Commission meeting. And just for an FYI, Florida had 2,046 transplants versus the whole nation only had 30,973, which is
And not
still not a
people,
lot.
organs,
Yeah,
not people.
organ
What's a
donations.
transplant? What?
Organ donations.
Organ, okay.
And
Organ
organ, when
donation.
you die.
Liver.
Okay.
I'm on this committee that goes against everything I'm for saving people, and I'm on this board regarding with medical examiners, and it's really different. Florida's donor registry, we relaunched the donor registry, and I think we made it with the driver's license. And it went up 75%. We went up 476,000 that have registered. So now we have 8,638,000 in Florida that are registered now,
That
which is
so
good.
good.
It's good.
So good.
And believe it or not, I read somewhere, we're the top 10% of all pancreatic transplants done in the United States is in Florida, which is weird. So anyway, and they've just now started doing, it's called VCA, and that's where they do the hand and the face transplants. They've done 5 in the United States so far, none in Florida. So I know it's a little bit morbid, but it's education, so I thought I'd pass it on.
As morbid as it could
Can
be.
we nominate anybody?
What?
Can we nominate someone?
Face transplant?
No, have you
Jeez.
seen the results of them? I've seen them on the
Politically incorrect.
news. I mean, they
Mary, I
still look
want
a
you
little
to know
rough.
when your term is up, I'm going
Yeah.
to miss you.
Still looks a little rough. So that's all I have.
Okay, Commissioner DeSalle.
Well, I have a really funny anecdote. When my grandmother was really ill, and I had to bring her to the hospital, and they asked a series of questions, and they asked her if she wanted to be an organ donor, and she said, "Well, not today." It was very cute.
Not
I hold off on that?
Not right now. That's good.
So,
Probably still warm.
just piggyback on what we said earlier about the Tampa Bay Estuary. It's a great group, and they put together this just handy-dandy information sheet, but the return on the investment to Manatee County is unbelievable. For $32,000 that we've contributed over the past 3 years, the estuary has leveraged more than $6.4 million in additional fundings to implement projects that benefit Tampa Bay. And for every dollar contributed by Manatee County, the estuary leveraged 66. So that's really huge. They exceeded their seagrass goals, and they're just a really spot-on group. And with only a staff of like 7 people, they do incredible work. And thanks to their technical advisory committee and their citizens advisory committee, they do yeoman's work.
Can I dialogue, Madam Chair? Would you please pass that along to everyone that asked you regarding, about the health of our bay? People think that we approve these developments, not realizing that there's farms there that have really destroyed our bay. And we've done smart growth throughout the years, and we've improved the bay since the 50s level. And people are saying that, the public say that we are destroying everything, and we have the science to prove that we're not. And you as chair, I would appreciate if you could get that message out.
Right, and we Manatee County sits on 3 estuaries.
Right.
And John sits on Sarasota Bay. I'm at Charlotte Harbor, and then up in Tampa Bay. But we're inviting all the estuaries to a conference, and inviting people from their advisory boards to a conference to discuss regionalism in the bay. And so that'll be cool. That's coming up in the spring, summer.
Can I dialogue
Go ahead.
just briefly? A major part of why the bays have been cleaning up is you touched on it, is smart growth. It's really understanding the stormwater runoff. It's also the septic tank removal programs that have been going on, which is huge, and the rework of our the sewage treatment plants, and getting rid of all those little portable plants that used to be all over the Sarasota, Manatee County area. So, it's been a lot of effort by a lot of people to clean up our estuaries.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm going to bring forward, we're having, in May at our next meeting, we're having a workshop on how our utility system, because of the spill that happened up in Pinellas County, we're really on top of that, and we're having some programming with utility departments regarding what we as individuals put down our drains into our toilets that should not be going there, because it affects the whole system. You get it out of your what do they call it, laterals, and then it goes into the main system, and then that just reduces the effectiveness in the entire system. So, that's really interesting, and how it would save the county's money in the long run by people like grease and oils and things, not putting down your drain, and other products that shouldn't be going down. So I'll be bringing that forward after May. The last item I have, I know we want to break for lunch. Dr. Spellman has been coming around to visit. He owns a complex on 26th Street East, and he's been working with the county. I see Sherry here. He's been working with the county and trying to pony up and get in line for TIF dollars to help his complex, and they're in the midst of trying to beautify their complex, but they're looking to see how they could get on the list, and I'm just being a shout out for him, for $10,000 to flare out his driveways so the ingress and egress would be smoother rather than people have to dead stop to turn in. So I know he's working with Sherry and her team, so I just wanted to see how people would be able to come forward with projects, public-private partnerships, utilizing the TIF money.
I didn't think that was allowed.
It's not, is it?
Yeah, I don't think we.
I wouldn't.
Commissioners, we don't have that process together fully yet, but we are working with those that are contacting us. So we will be back to you at a future date with that.
Okay. Oh, and last, I know John Barnard and the legal department was working with Patty Narozny, who came here from Bay Shore Gardens about the contractor, and I know you've been working with her to try to remedy that, and I hope staff reached out to her because for public comment was in the morning.
My understanding, that's settled and taken care of.
So, but she wanted something with her contractors.
It's taken care of.
Expunged.
It's not entirely taken care of from her perspective.
Oh, from her perspective.
From her
Okay.
perspective, that is correct.
Okay, but you are working on it, and we don't need to get involved in that, correct?
I don't think so.
I see no need for board involvement.
Okay,
We talked to her this morning, I think.
okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Chappie.
I'm good, thank you.
All right, well, I don't have anything, so we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting.
County
Attorney,
I'm
administrator.
sorry.
And our yeah. Anything?
Nothing.
Well, thank you.
But thank you.
Current, nothing? You don't want to,
Thank you for acknowledging.
nothing that you need to
Ed, okay?
relay from Ed or
Yeah.
Our deputy administrator.
trying to get you involved now?
No, I think he's going to be jealous that we've got done at 12 o'clock.
I know.
Oh, yeah, yeah, in fact, it was.
Tell him it's because he wasn't here. Just
Exactly.
kidding. That's why I'm mentioning it, because I thought maybe he was sending you emails or something. All
Okay,
right.
so we can
This
leave
meeting
our-
is adjourned.
Betsy will leave our port books, and they'll get them back.